Chapter 1 The woman he met, having multiple births. The female protagonist, Lu Mengli, had been drinking for 3 rounds, and the night was halfway over. In the midst of the hazy darkness, Chu Qiuting felt like he had had a very pleasant dream. In the dream, a beautiful woman with a hot body and pure looks was entwined with him. If it weren't for the splitting headache, he would have opened his eyes and felt like he could have a few more rounds. Wait. Something's wrong. Chu Qiuting reached out and pinched it again, and it felt very full. A balloon filled with water doesn't feel this good. A faint fragrance followed, making Chu Qiuting realize that there was someone else lying next to him. A woman. The moonlight was bright. It cast a ray of light that spread throughout the room. After adjusting to the hazy night, Chu Qiuting finally saw an incredibly delicate face. The perfect oval face was flawless. Long eyelashes trembled slightly, and the closed eyes looked as if she were asleep. The lips were full and luscious, but at the moment they were slightly pursed, as if she was holding back something. Since there was no quilt covering them, Chu Qiuting also noticed that his hand was resting on the other person's erected area. Seeing this, Chu Qiuting's desire suddenly flared up, but he suppressed it. As he recalled, he was surprised to find that although this woman was unfamiliar, she had appeared in his dream not long ago. Damn it, could it be that the dream I had was actually not a dream? He quickly recalled what had happened. He had attended a class reunion and met this woman by chance. She and a group of friends had also come out for hot pot, and someone knew her friends, so they all ate together. Then everyone was in high spirits and started to compete in drinking. As they competed, they ended up in bed together. Suddenly, Chu Qiuting understood. They both lost control after drinking, and this woman was his first. What was her name? Lu Mengli? It seems to be that name. And it seems that she was the campus queen of the University of Shanghai for Science and Technology. But I'm not bad either. I was also the campus heartthrob of Beijing Normal University. He once again fixed his gaze on Lu Mengli's face, but his hands were rubbing her cheek mischievously. The other person's eyebrows furrowed slightly, as if she had sensed something. Chu Qiuting's breathing became heavy at this moment. He propped himself up on one hand, leaned his whole body sideways, stretched his neck out, and slowly moved closer to the other person's red lips. Just as he was about to kiss her, Lu Mengli suddenly opened her eyes. For a moment, their gazes met. The mood also changed from ambiguous to solemn and awkward at this moment. Chu Qiuting, who was stiff in midair, suddenly grinned and said, "You're awake." The woman's eyes were cold, and there was no emotion on her face. She didn't respond to Chu Qiuting's words, but instead shifted her gaze from his face to her breasts. A pair of large hands were invading her territory. So she reached out and moved Chu Qiuting's hand from her body to somewhere else. Then she got up from the bed again, searched for a while, picked up the clothes and underwear scattered on the floor, and then walked into the bathroom. The whole process did not involve any communication with Chu Qiuting. Chu Qiuting soon heard the sound of running water coming from the bathroom. The graceful reflection on the glass, the swaying figure, was breathtaking. What did this woman mean? Chu Qiuting was a bit at a loss. Was she going to settle the score with him, or was she just going to let it go? Not long after, Lu Mengli washed up and came out fully dressed. Her shoulders were draped with long, wet hair, and her indifferent gaze rested on Chu Qiuting as she said, "I hope that what happened last night will be considered as if it never happened between the two of us." While waiting, Chu Qiuting did not expect that Lu Mengli's first words were to distance themselves from the relationship. But that's fine, no one loses out. After saying that, Lu Mengli turned and left, leaving Chu Qiuting alone in the hotel, reminiscing. What an interesting woman, I thought you wanted me to take responsibility. Chu Qiuting's mouth curled up slightly. Of course, if you had said it, I would definitely take responsibility. 6 years passed in a flash. Chu Qiuting had graduated for more than 4 years. After entering society, he realized the cruelty of reality. He had been unproductive at school, which had led to his current unstable job. In the past 4 years, he had moved bricks on construction sites, worked as a waiter in restaurants, and also worked as a customer service representative in a company. But he couldn't stay long in any of these jobs. He finally entered the gaming field, where he worked as an anchor taking orders, barely able to make ends meet. In his spare time, he would also deliver takeaways, and as a result, he had been in quite a few car accidents. Fortunately, they were all just scrapes, and no one was hit, which was considered lucky. However, the battery was stolen several times, which made Chu Qiuting so angry that he quit delivering food. At this time, Chu Qiuting had experienced all kinds of life, but life still had to go on, and he could not blame others. It was time to pay the rent again. After Chu Qiuting transferred 4,500 yuan to the landlord, there was less than 3,000 yuan left in his card. This was his living expenses for the next period of time. He had wanted to get a new computer, but now that had become a luxury. He could only grit his teeth and continue to play for his employer on the same machine he had bought for 3,000 yuan from the second-hand market 3 years ago. After logging into his employer's LOL account, he prepared to spend the night rushing from gold to platinum, which would cost about 400 yuan. Platinum to emerald would be slightly more expensive, at about 500 yuan. If the computer is better configured and has higher FPS, he will have more room to operate and naturally his rank will rise faster. Boom! Just then, there was a loud thunder outside, and soon it started pouring. Chu Qiuting didn't care. After all, he was making money at home, and he wouldn't even look if there was a flood that didn't reach his home. Knock, knock, knock. Knock, knock, knock. However, there was suddenly a knock on the door. It sounded more rhythmic and not so urgent. In doubt, Chu Qiuting put down his headphones and got up to go to the door, looking through the peephole while wondering. He saw a woman in a raincoat, standing in the doorway with her head down, making it hard to see her face. Chu Qiuting hesitated, but then the door rang again, so he opened the door. The woman also looked up, facing Chu Qiuting directly. After taking a good look at the woman's face, the atmosphere instantly froze. There was a loud rumble. And the lightning and thunder roared again. Chu Qiuting woke up with a start and looked at the woman in some disbelief, saying, "Lu Mingli?" After Chu Qiuting called out her name, Lu Mingli had tears in her eyes and said with a choked voice, "Chu Qiuting, I can't hold on anymore." From the other person's tired face, it was clear that Lu Mingli was not in good shape. Although she was wearing a raincoat, her hair and shoes were wet. Let's talk inside first. Chu Qiuting was a little surprised that the woman he had encountered 6 years ago but had never interacted with would be intertwined again. After Lu Mingli was pulled into the house, Chu Qiuting noticed that her hands were abnormally cold, so he hurriedly poured her a cup of hot water. The other person had also taken off their raincoat and then stood in the doorway but did not dare to take a seat. "What are you being polite for? Sit." Chu Qiuting was not quite sure why Lu Mingli had suddenly appeared, but she must be in some kind of trouble and needed his help. Lu Mingli, however, said with tear-filled eyes, "Chu Qiuting, there is no time to waste. I have come this time to ask you for a favor." "Speak." Chu Qiuting handed the other person the cup of water to warm their hands and then said firmly, "If there is anything I can do to help, I will. I want to ask you to lend me some money." Lu Mingli spoke her mind and began to sob uncontrollably. "Sanba has a fever, and I really don't have the money to take her to the doctor, so I have no choice but to find you." Chu Qiuting was surprised and blurted out, "You have a child? Where is the father of that child?" But I saw Lu Mingli looking at Chu Qiuting with strange eyes, and she said with a grievance, "You are their father." Chapter 2 7 Adorable children shouting "Daddy." My children? These words exploded in Chu Qiuting's mind like a thunderbolt. Suddenly, he noticed the details in Lu Mingli's words, and his heart was in turmoil. "You mean, that accident we had back then caused you to become pregnant, and there's more than one?" "To be precise, there are 7. Lu Mingli also said with great grievance, "I didn't expect to give birth to so many back then." Chu Qiuting was stunned. 7? 7 children in one birth. What kind of operation is this? Are my genes that powerful? Looking at Lu Mingli's slender figure, which had not been deformed in any way, he found it hard to imagine how the other person could be more fertile than a sow. After coming back to his senses, Chu Qiuting saw that Lu Mingli didn't seem to be lying, and hurriedly asked again, "You said Sanba is sick, where is he?" "Tianha community, less than 7 kilometers from your home." After explaining, Lu Mingli suddenly grabbed the corner of her shirt with both hands, saying, "Chu Qiuting, I didn't mean to put you in charge. I'm the one who wants to give birth. I came this time to ask you for a loan, and I promise I'll pay you back as soon as possible." Chu Qiuting suddenly became serious, saying, "Lu Mingli, what nonsense are you talking about? That's my child too. How could I ignore it if it's sick? Let's not talk about that for now. Hurry up and take me to see the baby. A fever is no small matter. If it damages the brain, it could be a big deal." Seeing that Chu Qiuting was insistent, Lu Mingli pursed her lips and finally agreed to go with him. A battery car was parked in front of the door. Chu Qiuting glanced at it and saw that it was a bit worn out, not as good as his battery car, which was gathering dust. Chu Ting simply said, "It's raining so heavily, let's take a taxi back." A taxi would cost more than 20 yuan, but Lu Mengli was calculating the money. Only having been in charge of a household did she know how difficult it was to make money. But Chu Ting didn't care about that. He opened the taxi hailing app, entered Tianhe community, and asked Lu Mengli to confirm it. After making sure it was accurate, he called a taxi. Within a minute, someone accepted the order. After a journey that took less than 20 minutes, Chu Ting and Lu Mengli arrived at the entrance to the community. Lu Mengli led Chu Ting into the basement on the first floor, which was a relatively cheap location. It was raining heavily at the time, and one could see a lot of water accumulating, causing a large area of dampness. Chu Ting couldn't help but feel his eyes watering, and he followed behind without saying a word. It wasn't until the iron door opened that he saw several cute babies aged 4 or 5 years old busily taking care of another baby lying on the floor with only a cushion for support. They were all girls and looked exactly the same. It was hard to tell which one was which at first glance. "Mom!" All the babies shouted in unison when they saw Lu Mengli return. Their soft and cute voices almost melted Chu Ying's heart. One of them ran up to Lu Mengli and hugged her tightly, saying, "Mom, Sanba's face is so hot, what should we do, Mom? Mom, who is this big brother?" The other children were also curious, but they looked a little nervous and scared. Lu Mengli didn't know what to say, and she looked at Chu Ting, but he was at a loss for words. Chu Ting had mixed feelings. He had never thought that he would suddenly have 7 children. Each one looked very young and cute, and you could tell from their faces that they had her mother's eyes, his nose, and his own facial contours. He crouched down and a smile of paternal love appeared on his face as he said, "Little treasure, I'm your father." "Father?" Dabao opened his big eyes and looked at Lu Mengli, confusedly saying, "Mom, didn't you say that Dad was far away and couldn't come back?" "You're a big liar, you're not my father. My father is a hero." Chu Ting felt a little sad, and looked at Lu Mengli. He wasn't sure how the other party described himself to the children. But the priority was to check Sanbao's condition. At the moment, he had a very high fever and was not quite conscious. His red cheeks were like red-hot iron rods. There was no time to catch up with the kids, so Chu Ting immediately picked him up and said to Lu Mengli, "I'll take the child to the hospital first, you stay here and take care of him." "Mom, I don't want him to take Sanbao away. You're a bad guy, give my sister back to me." One by one, the cute babies all rushed forward, blocking Chu Ting's path, yelling and screaming, as if they were going to protect Sanbao. Chu Ting had no choice but to ask Lu Mengli for help. The other party also suddenly came to her senses, relieved and trying hard to force a smile. She explained to the cute babies, "Baby, he really is your father. It was your mother who found him from a very long way away. Daddy came back to save Sanbao too, so you guys should get out of the way and stop messing with Daddy, be good." "Mom, is he really your father?" "Absolutely." Lu Mengli's eyes brimmed with tears as she nodded seriously. The children took another look at Chu Ying, then all rushed over at once, hugging him and shouting, "Dad! I have a dad, I finally have a dad! Dad, where have you been all these years? We missed you so much." Chu Ting heard the children accept him and call him Dad over and over again. For some reason, tears welled up in his eyes. He took a deep breath and greeted the children, saying, "Be good, my darlings. Dad has to take Sanbao to the doctor now. Will you stay with your mom?" "Yes." "Dad, my sister is sick, you must cure her." "Dad, I want a chicken drumstick." Chu Ting saw that these cute kids had let down their guard around him, and while he was moved inside, he also fulfilled their requests. "Okay, Dad will definitely bring Sanbao back healthy and bring you lots of delicious snacks." "Yay! Dad is the best. I love you, Dad. Dad, remember to bring food for Mom too, she hasn't eaten all day." Lu Mengli's smile suddenly froze, and she looked at Chu Ting a little embarrassed. "Don't listen to what they're saying, I already ate." But Chu Ting didn't say anything, and he took Sanbao and left the basement. Since there was no umbrella, Chu Ting was going to wrap Sanbao in his own jacket to prevent him from getting wet and getting a fever. But at this time, Lu Mengli came out with an umbrella to protect Chu Ting from the wind and rain. "Why did you come out? Go back quickly." Chu Ting shouted, "You have to take care of the other children. What if something happens if you're not here?" However, Lu Mengli smiled happily and said, "They can take care of themselves, so don't worry." Chu Ting didn't say anything more. The longer Sanbao's illness dragged on, the more annoyed he became. After hailing a taxi again, the two got in and rushed to the nearby hospital. Sanbao in his arms was burning up, and he shouted deliriously, "Mom, I'm so cold." The driver also looked at the back seat and noticed that the baby looked like he had a fever. He then said to Chu Chou Ting and his wife, "Is the baby running a fever? Then just sit tight, I'll take you to the hospital as soon as possible." Chu Chou Ting also repeatedly thanked the kind driver. Lu Mengli's thoughts were all on Sanbao, and she comforted him, "Baby, mommy will take you to the hospital, just hang in there a little longer. Daddy is back, he will take you to the doctor, you have to be good." As she spoke, her face was covered in tears. Her trembling hands held Sanbao's small hands tightly, rubbing them together constantly, as if to keep them warm. The serious and caring way she was looking after him made Chu Chou Ting feel incredibly sad. "How have you been getting through all these years?" Chu Chou Ting asked, choking back his tears. Chapter 3 Brother Tongzi, who delivered coal in the snow, has transformed into a cute baby daddy. Lu Mengli's hand paused suddenly, and then she continued rubbing Sanbao's wrist, smiling as she said, "I've been doing well." Although they had only met twice, he understood that she was a strong woman. He was very curious about what had happened in the past 6 years, but he could also imagine how difficult it had been. "Don't worry, I'll be there for you in the days to come. Even if Chu Chou Ting's life is a mess right now, he won't run away from his responsibilities. He's prepared to face it together with Lu Mengli." However, these words made Lu Mengli burst into tears. There weren't many words, just a simple okay that revealed all her feelings. Soon, with the driver's steady driving, they arrived at the hospital. Chu Chou Ting hurriedly rushed into the hospital with Sanbao in his arms, shouting, "Doctor, where is the doctor?" Soon a nurse came out of the hospital and asked, "What's wrong?" "The child has a fever, please help me take a look." Chu Chou Ting said anxiously, "Please." The nurse immediately arranged a ward and then asked Chu Chou Ting to go through the formalities. Lu Mengli followed Sanbao for treatment. After a while, after Chu Chou Ting finished the formalities, the hospital test results were also out. The reason Sanbao had a fever was mainly because his poor physique caused bronchitis, which in turn caused a high fever that would not go down. The problem now was not whether Sanbao's high fever could be cured, but the medical expenses for his hospitalization. After the diagnosis, the doctor also prescribed medicine and asked Chu Chou Ting to pay the bill. It was more than 4,300 yuan in total. He only had 2,800 yuan on hand, which was less than half of the total. Seeing Lu Mengli by Chu Chou Ting's bedside, taking care of Sanbao, he didn't have the heart to ask if there was any extra money. He thought about how it had been hard for her to take care of the 7 children for the past 5 or 6 years, and it would be really cowardly of him to ask for more. He opened his phone and found the game employer. Chu Chou Ting sent a message, "Boss, I'm playing your account right now, and I'll be able to reach master in no time. I want to discuss with you whether you can advance me some money, I have an emergency." After waiting for a few minutes, the other person replied, "Brother, I only hired you because I trust you, but I just logged into the assistant and my rank is still gold. What makes you think you can beat the master? If you can't, I'll find someone else, and there's no way I'll pay you in advance." The other person's ruthless rejection dealt Chu Chou Ting another heavy blow. Chu Chou Ting immediately asked a few of his gaming friends again, and they all said that they were not well off and could not give him much. A few tens or hundreds of dollars can provide some relief. But this amount of money is completely insufficient to address the urgent situation, and Chu Chou Ying was at a loss for the time being. In the hospital room, Lu Mengli noticed that Chu Chou Ying was pacing in the hallway, occasionally making phone calls, as if trying to raise the money. Lu Mengli glanced at the more than 600 yuan in her account, which was her entire fortune. After thinking for a moment, she walked out of the hospital room and whispered to Chu Chou Ying, "How much is the medical bill?" Putting down his phone, he fixed his gaze on Lu Mengli, but she smiled back at him and said, "Don't worry about the medical expenses, I'll take care of it. You go in and keep Sanbao company, I'll go buy you guys something to eat." With that, Chu Chou Ting left straight away. Watching Chu Chou Ting turn around, Lu Mengli pursed her lips, her eyes carrying a touch of apology, before turning back into the ward. At the same time, she watched Sanbao receiving an intravenous drip and slowly lowering his fever. She thought for a moment, took out her phone and called home. It rang for a long time before it was answered, and then a cold voice came on the line, "Didn't you say you wanted to break with your family? Why are you calling back?" "Dad, I need some money." Lu Mengli looked at Sanbao and clenched her fists, saying, "Just 5,000 yuan will do." "Now you know about money?" Lu's father's words still carried anger as he said, "I still say the same thing, find that wild man for me and give him all the children, you come home with me, I'll do whatever you want, otherwise forget it." Lu Mingli was a little broken, saying, "Dad, why are you so cruel? Chibo is also your granddaughter. Even if you're angry, they're still my flesh and blood. How could I possibly abandon them?" "Then you just keep insisting." Lu's father continued, "I have something else to do, so I'm hanging up." As he listened to the phone go to voicemail, Lu Mingli helplessly leaned against the wall, slowly crouched down, and covered her face and cried. Chu Chou Ting arrived at the hospital entrance, looking at the ongoing heavy rain. His mood was also incredibly heavy. More than 4,000 yuan was like the last straw that broke the camel's back, and Chu Chou Ting tried every means possible but still had nowhere to borrow the money. After looking around WeChat, his gaze finally landed on the landlord's rent. He regretted it a little, thinking that if he had known, he would have delayed paying the rent for a day. Now he had to be brazen and send a message to the landlord. "Are you there, sister? I want to discuss something with you." "Yes, little Chu, what's wrong?" The landlord replied promptly. "Sister, it's the rent I gave you. Can you refund it to me first? I have an urgent need for it. Can I transfer it to you tomorrow?" Chu Qiuting felt uneasy after sending the message. The other party did not reply for a long time. 5 minutes passed. The nurse came over and said to Chu Qiuting, "Mr. Chu, it's time to pay for your child's treatment." "I'll pay right away, just a moment." Chu Qiuting politely replied to the nurse. "Please hurry," the nurse said and walked away. The landlord also sent a message, "Chu, this won't do, the rent is due, you must pay it. You can't borrow from the rent even if you're in a hurry, right?" Chu Qiuting didn't reply, knowing that even this last option would not work. He was going to pay the first 2,000 yuan first, and as for the remaining fees, he would talk to the hospital and ask for a few days' grace. When he reached the payment window, Lu Mingli followed him and stood next to him, saying, "What's your WeChat ID? Why are you out here?" Chu Qiuting didn't want Lu Mingli to see how embarrassed he was, so he made an excuse and said, "Sanbao needs someone to watch over it, so you go in quickly, and I'll give you my contact information in a moment." "Chu Qiuting, I know you don't have enough money. I still have a few hundred yuan in my WeChat, so let's make do with that for now." Lu Mingli also knew that Chu Qiuting was embarrassed, but at this juncture, face was no longer important. Chu Qiuting, who had the words on the tip of his tongue, looked downcast. Instead of making excuses for not having enough money, he looked up, trying not to let the tears fall, and let out a deep breath, forcing a smile. "What are you talking about? Who said I don't have enough money? You go back quickly, don't worry about the cost." Just then, a prompt suddenly appeared in Chu Qiuting's mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for binding the cute baby daddy system. Chapter 4, Be a good husband to a woman and a good father to a cute child. Chu Qiuting, who had been obsessed with novels for a while, was familiar with this prompt. He hurriedly communicated with the system mentally. "Brother Tonzi? It is this system." The cute child and father system replied. "Good guy, it really is." Chu Qiuting's face was covered with joy as he said, "Now I'm facing a huge problem, so solve it for me first." "Please, my lord, calm down. You don't need to worry about the medical expenses for the baby." The system explained, "You should first listen to the functions and rewards of this system." "Tell me." After seeing the system prompt, Chu Qiuting couldn't wait to hear more. My lord should have a general idea of the functions of this system. As the name suggests, it allows the lord to become a super dad and take care of the baby, thereby randomly obtaining various rewards. The task rewards are simple. The owner must take care of the children personally, with no restrictions on the specific methods of care, such as feeding, bathing, and doing the laundry, etc. However, if the owner just does things half-heartedly to get by with the system, there is no way to get any rewards. Therefore, each task will be strictly scored, and reasonable reward conditions will ultimately be given. Chu Qiuting understood at once. The purpose of the cute baby daddy system is to let him take care of the children. As long as the children are well taken care of, his rewards will continue to come in an endless stream. Perhaps it is to make up for the fact that he has been a negligent father for the past 5 or 6 years. The initial reward will now be distributed. To congratulate the owner on becoming a less than qualified father, you will be punished for taking good care of them in the days to come. It has been detected that the children's bodies are seriously lacking in nutrients, so the system will give the owner a starting fund of 50,000 yuan to temporarily solve your urgent needs. Subsequent care of the children will depend on your performance to give varying degrees of rewards. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Qiuting felt his phone vibrate. He didn't look at it in front of Lu Mingli, but casually glanced at it, and it was a bank text message. Obviously, the system's 50,000 had been credited to his account. At this moment, Chu Ting regained his confidence as a man, and while handing over a list to the doctor at the window who was paying the bill, he said, "Please help me settle the bill." After taking the bill, the doctor began to register and said to Chu Ting, "A total of 4,365 yuan. Please tell me if you would like to pay in cash or by scanning the QR code?" Scan the QR code. Chu Ting placed his phone on the scanner, and with a drop of sound, the payment was successful. Chu Ting's heart finally fell, and then he smiled at Lu Mingli and said, "I already said that you don't need to worry about the expenses, and neither will you in the future. Let's go and see San Bao," he said, and he was about to take Lu Mingli's hand and leave, but when he lifted it halfway up in the air, he felt it was inappropriate, so he smiled slightly and let go. Lu Mingli, however, felt that Chu Ting was a bit strange. After taking another look at the payment window, she saw that the money had indeed been paid. She wondered to herself, did this guy borrow the money? After arriving in the ward, Chu Ting asked Lu Mingli, "What did the doctor say? Is San Bao okay?" The doctor said that San Bao is relatively weak and needs to be kept under observation for a day or two after the fever subsides. As Lu Mingli said this, moisture appeared in her eyes again. "In fact, I always knew that San Bao had a weak constitution. When she was a child, she didn't drink much milk. It's all my fault for not being able to take care of them." At this moment, all her grievances suddenly erupted, and Chu Ting felt sad just by watching her. It's incredible to think that a woman has raised 7 children on her own. Chu Ting reached out his hand, hesitated for a moment, and then placed it on the other person's shoulder, gently reassuring her, "Everything will be fine. Don't cry. I'm here now, and we'll take care of these children together in the future." Lu Mingli also felt like she had found someone to rely on. Tears welled up in her eyes as she said, "Chu Ting, if I hadn't been desperate, I wouldn't have implicated you." "I'm sorry. What are you talking about? This is something that I should have borne." Chu Ting found that Lu Mingli was really a gentle woman. He smiled slightly, reached out to wipe away the tears at the corner of the other person's eyes, and said tenderly, "Actually, you should have told me about this earlier, and you wouldn't have had to suffer so much." Feeling the comfort from this strange yet familiar man, Lu Mingli felt that all her grievances were slowly fading away. She picked herself up and said, "Chu Ting, since the children have already recognized you as their father, I don't have anything to hide either. You also need to be prepared to be a good father." "Of course, I'll start preparing now." Chu Ting smiled and said, "After San Bao's illness is cured, let's move them out of the basement. That place is too damp and not good for your health. I know the current environment is not suitable for living, but there's nothing I can do about it. Lu Mingli has a lot of unspoken suffering, blaming me for being unmotivated and unable to earn money, which has caused suffering for the children. Things will get better." Chu Ting smiled slightly and said, "I haven't fulfilled my duty as a father all these years, and now it's my turn to take care of them. As for money, you don't have to worry about it, I have it." Lu Mingli looked at Chu Ting with red eyes. The smile on this man in front of her seemed to be very healing to the soul. Spending time with him would unconsciously calm one's mood. Could this be called relying on someone? Over the years, she had never felt this way before. It was when she was a child, when she had parents by her side to take care of her and she had no worries about food and clothing, that she felt this way. "Give me your phone." Chu Ting spoke again as the other person was engrossed. "Ha?" Lu Mingli came back to her senses and said, "What do you want?" "Of course it's to add you as a friend." Chu Ting also sighed and said, "We are both the parents of children, but how can we not have a way to contact each other? It would be a laughing stock if we told people." Lu Mingli also blushed, and then added the phone number in WeChat. Then, Chu Ting transferred another 10,000 yuan to Lu Mingli. Seeing the transfer information, Lu Mingli stared at it and said, "Chu Ting, what are you doing? I don't want it," she said, and was about to click to refund it, but Chu Ting stopped her. "Lu Mingli, you keep this money, I will spend the rest of my life taking care of you all." Chu Ting said emotionally, "In the future, I will make even more money for you and the children. Consider it a repayment for what I have owed you over the past few years." In Lu Mingli's heart, which was riddled with pain, it was as if a ray of sunshine had shone in, slowly healing her. The tears that could not be stopped were moved to tears by Chu Ying's words. She didn't know how she felt about Chu Ying at the moment, but she could not resist the warmth he brought her. "Perhaps this is the haven of home. I will also work hard to take care of the 7 cute babies with you." Lu Mingli also made a promise. The two's relationship was once again intertwined because of the appearance of the cute children. This time, Chu Cho Ting was also determined to get to know this great and gentle woman again. Reaching out his hand, Chu Cho Ting's face beamed with a smile as he said, "Hello, mother of my children, my name is Chu Cho Ting. I'm very happy to meet you and to have you give birth to these 7 adorable children for me." Lu Mengli was taken aback for a moment, but quickly reacted, also reaching out her hand to have physical contact with Chu Cho Ting for the second time. "Father, thank you. Chapter 5 You gave birth to 7 children for me, how could I let you lose again?" The rain gradually disappeared. Lu Mingli's mood was like the sky clearing after the rain. With Chu Cho Ting by her side, she also felt relieved. At this time, Sanbao's high fever also subsided, and the two people's hearts that had been carrying a burden also let go. "I'll go buy some food." Chu Choting glanced at the time, it was just after 9 in the evening. Worried that the children were hungry, and not feeling at ease with the children at home, he explained to Lu Mengli, "You can take it back to the babies in a little while." With tens of thousands of yuan in his hands, Chu Choting also had a little bit of confidence. Without giving Lu Mengli a chance to argue, he had already got up and left. The air had become fresh after the rain, driving away a little of the stuffiness. As he walked along the road, Chu Cho Ting felt refreshed. There were many street food stalls and other fruit shops around the hospital. He also remembered that his baby liked chicken legs, so he went to KFC and ordered 2 family buckets, 5 orders of fried rice with eggs, and some light food for Sanbao. He then went to the fruit shop and bought tangerines, bananas, watermelons and other fruits, which he couldn't carry in both hands. The trip cost a few hundred yuan, but Chu Cho Ting didn't mind at all. If he had a car, he would have carried all this food. When they arrived at the hospital room, Sanbao had already woken up. "Mom, why isn't Dad back yet? I want to see Dad." Lu Mengli was comforting Sanbao, saying, "Honey, Dad went to buy food and will be back soon." As soon as he entered the door, Chu Choying heard their conversation and a moment of adoring love suddenly appeared on his face. His fingers were bruised from holding the bag, and the bag was so heavy that it couldn't fit on the table, so he had to put it on the floor for now. Seeing that Chu Cho Ting's fingers were bruised and discolored, Lu Mengli felt a little uncomfortable. She got up and took it from him, saying, "Why did you buy so much? It's a waste if you can't finish it all." But Chu Cho Ting laughed and said, "It's not much. If I could carry it, I would have brought you some other things too." "Dad?" Sanbao felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity when he first saw Chu Cho Ting, and his childish voice carried a hint of cheerfulness as he shouted, "Daddy, I'm home." Chu Cho Ting was not that unfamiliar with the children, but he was also a little nervous. He walked over to the edge of the bed and looked at Sanbao, who was in much better spirits, his face full of a smile. He said, "Guess what delicious food Daddy brought you?" "Wow, KFC." Sanbao saw several boxes of Family Bucket at a glance, and his eyes lit up a little. "Daddy, did you buy all this for me?" In a child's world, there is nothing but toys and food, so he is especially happy. But Lu Mengli said to Sanbao, "Baby, you're still sick, you can't eat any of this." Sanbao pouted immediately, his face full of grievances, looking pitifully at Chu Cho Ting as if asking for help. Chu Cho Ting, however, took out a bowl of millet and lean pork congee and minced pork and egg custard, and the delicious smell instantly filled the air, making Sanbao's mouth water. He smiled and said, "Honey, how about I feed you some lean pork congee?" "Yes." Sanbao was a bit weak, thin, and didn't have much flesh when held in one's arms. But Chu Cho Ting didn't blame Lu Mengli. After all, she had to take care of 7 cute babies by herself, and it was good that she could feed them, so what more could she ask for? Seeing the little one's excited face, Chu Cho Ting carried a bowl of millet and lean pork porridge to the bedside and said to Lu Mengli, who was tidying up a pile of food, "I brought you fried rice with eggs and chicken soup. You should come and eat too." "I'm not hungry." But suddenly, Lu Mengli became self-conscious. This look made Chu Cho Ting feel a little sad. Then, looking at the washed-out clothes and the damp canvas shoes, he continued, "My dear, your mother has been busy all day. Shouldn't you go and encourage her to eat with you?" "Mom, come on, let's eat together, otherwise I won't eat either." Sanbao was very understanding and said with a heart full of compassion. Lu Mengli gave Chu Cho Ting a cold stare. They had just become friends with the child, and they had already started to gang up against her. However, she was touched inside, and finally had hope for her family. Fine, Mom will eat with you." Lu Mengli could not convince the two of them, so while Chu Cho Ting took another serving of fried rice, they sat down together and started to eat cheerfully. Chu Cho Ting personally fed Sanbao, and the other person also ate with relish. While feeding, Chu Ting wiped Sanbao's mouth, but Sanbao said with a smile, "Mom, you feed Dad too." Lu Mengli. "Mom, Dad doesn't have hands to eat, so you feed him." Sanbao seemed to be closer to Chu Ting, and he even urged him without any hesitation. Lu Mengli thought for a moment, then took a disposable spoon and scooped a mouthful of rice from her own lunchbox and brought it to Chu Ying's mouth. Under Sanbao's watchful gaze, Chu Ying's face wore a faint smile as he opened his mouth and took a bite. This caused Sanbao to giggle. "Mom, I finally have a dad." Sanbao was about to dance for joy. Chu Ying and Lu Mengli, however, looked at each other and smiled, then a trace of bitterness appeared in their eyes. 10 minutes later, Chu Ying fed Sanbao 2/3 of a bowl of lean meat porridge, and he didn't stop until the other person couldn't eat anymore. He didn't force it, after all, the child's appetite was only so big, and it was already remarkable that he could eat so much. After eating, Sanbao also felt sleepy and fell asleep again. After taking care of Sanbao, a system prompt suddenly sounded, ding. Congratulations to the owner for feeding Sanbao for the first time. Rating D, received a 1,000 yuan reward. Beginning to double generation. Ding. Double success. Received a triple food allowance reward. 3,000 yuan has been issued to the owner's account. Ding. Activate prop card, double money. Chu Ting's eyes lit up after hearing this. He didn't expect the system to keep its word, and that he could receive a reward just by taking care of the cute baby. And there is a doubling mechanism, with a maximum multiple of 7 and a minimum multiple of 1. At this point, he received a 3x reward, turning 1,000 yuan into 3,000 yuan. Although it wasn't much, he had still earned it easily. And there was also a money doubling item card. Looking at the annotation, he could double the money in his hand directly, not just the current reward. However, Chu Ting did not choose to double it immediately. After all, he had enough money for now, and it would be better to double it when he had saved up a certain amount. On the other hand, Lu Mengli finished half a bowl of fried rice with eggs and didn't drink much soup before packing up. Seeing this, Chu Ying gathered his thoughts and said to her, "Sanbao's condition has improved a lot now, so you can go home first. I'm not at ease leaving them at home alone, so you should go home and eat some more later." Okay. Lu Mengli did not refuse, and in fact, she was also worried about the children. Although she usually went to work and the children were self-reliant and did not get into trouble, it was getting late and they had not eaten dinner yet, so she was getting ready to leave. Chu Ying told her to take all the food back. He also took some food with him and then took a taxi to the hospital. As Lu Mengli walked side by side with Chu Ting, she thought about it for a long time and finally asked, "Chu Ting, are you sure?" "Sure about what?" Chu Ting was waiting for the taxi to arrive, and while he turned back, he smiled slightly at Lu Mengli and said, "Do you mean taking responsibility for a family?" Although he didn't want to admit it, after this incident, Lu Mengli felt that having a man in the family could still alleviate a lot of the burden, so he nodded and said, "Well. Of course, if you're not ready, after Sanbao gets better, you can go back to your old life." Chu Ting looked into the other person's eyes. After he finished speaking, he noticed some hesitation and despondency in the other person's eyes. It was obvious that she didn't want Chu Ting to leave either. It was just that she chose to respect Chu Ting's decision. Such a virtuous woman, if she let him down once, how could he let her down again this time? "When you approached me and learned that I was the father of 7 children, I was already prepared to take responsibility for the entire family, including you. I will never let you down again in this life." Chapter 6 Let me get to know you again from your figure. The car is here. With Chu Ting's help, Lu Mengli loaded all the food into the car, leaving only a small portion to eat with the fruit at the hospital. After the driver started, Chu Ting could not rest assured and reminded her, "Call me or send me a message when you get home, and be careful on the road." Okay. Lu Mengli nodded. After the car disappeared at the end, Chu Ting turned around and returned to the ward. At this time, Sanbao was still asleep, so Chu Ting did not disturb him. Instead, he took out his phone and looked for friends to chat with, but found that after so many years, he had lost contact with his old classmates. Suddenly, a WeChat friend who had been forgotten in the corner caught his eye. He had added her as a friend, and her name was Chen Xiaoyan. She had been a drinking buddy of Lu Mengli at the time, and he didn't know why he had added her as a friend. After that, they had never been in contact. Chu Ting was very curious about what had happened to Lu Mengli after the one-night stand. So after a moment's thought, he clicked on the other person's chat page and sent a text, "Hello, classmate, do you remember me? Who are you? How did you get my WeChat? The other person replied a few minutes later. My name is Chu Cho Ting. We had a drink together 6 years ago. Chu Cho Ting added, you were at the table with Lu Mingli, and then you got together with some of our friends from Shida University. Chu Cho Ting? Chen Xiaoyan replied a few words. I remember, that night I was also drunk and was taken away by my boyfriend, and then Lu Mingli came back by herself. What did you guys do to Lu Mingli? She dropped out of school for no reason and deleted all our contact information. Dropped out of school? Chu Qiuting was shocked. Could it be because of the pregnancy? You don't know? Chen Xiaoyan added, it's baffling, but without contact information we won't get answers. Anyway, after all these years, why are you looking for Lu Mingli? Chu Qiuting had also learned some information about Lu Mingli from the other party. Apparently, she had not mentioned her pregnancy to anyone, but had suffered alone. During their contact, she had never mentioned her family, and only came to find him when she really couldn't afford the medical expenses. This explained many things, and it seemed that the only way to find out was to ask Lu Mingli. It's nothing, just a casual question. Chu Qiuting also planned to keep it a secret. By the way, don't delete WeChat. If there is any news about Lu Mingli, we can contact each other again. Chen Xiaoyan sent a few question marks and added, you must have done something to Lu Mingli back then, otherwise, with her academic performance, I'm afraid she would have already become successful by now. I won't delete you, but I also hope that you can find Lu Mingli and give me an explanation. I will. Chu Qiuting's heart was filled with mixed emotions. After ending the chat, it wasn't long before Lu Mingli sent a message, I'm here. Chu Qiuting replied in seconds, good. After thinking for a moment, he added with some unease, I'll stay with San Bao at the hospital tonight, so you take care of the little ones at home. Remember to eat a lot, you're all skin and bones. Lu Mingli sent a series of ellipses. Chu Qiuting didn't know what to say either. Although he had a lot of questions to ask, he felt that it wasn't the right time. After a few minutes, Lu Mingli sent him a picture, which looked a bit like a family portrait. The children were gathered together, happily eating from the family bucket. From the cheerful smiles on their faces, it was clear that these children had not had these snacks for a long time. They were all asking when you were coming back. Chu Qiuting suddenly felt like his wife was concerned about her husband and using the children as an excuse. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth as he replied, what did you say? Lu Mingli didn't reply, so Chu Qiuting waited patiently while he went on Douyin to find toys and clothes that the cute kids would like. After looking for a long time, he had chosen some clothes, but he didn't know the sizes, so he couldn't check out for a while. At this time, Lu Mingli finally replied, I said I'm keeping Sanba company, and we'll come back together when he gets better. Do you know the sizes of their clothes and the shoe sizes? Chu Qiuting asked simply and straightforwardly. Staring at the message page, Lu Mingli hesitated to reply. On the other side. After reading Chu Qiuting's message, Lu Mingli didn't know how to reply. She didn't want to make Chu Qiuting spend money. At this time, she still felt that she had already troubled the other party enough, and was afraid of leaving an impression on Chu Qiuting that she was looking for him to spend money. But looking at the several cute children, she suddenly felt her eyes watering again, as she had not bought them any decent clothes for over a year. She did not want to make the children suffer even though she was suffering herself. Ding dong. The sound of the message notification sounded again. She looked at the latest message from Chu Qiuting, I want to buy some clothes and shoes for the children. Don't think too much about it, after all, I am now a member of the family, and I want to make up for this debt. Lu Mingli wiped away the tears from the corner of her eyes, then typed in the information very familiar to her, they are about 105 centimeters tall, and weigh. She typed in the information and suddenly paused. Looking at the emaciated faces of the children, she felt very sad in her heart and said, 16 kilograms, so they can wear shoes in sizes 29 or 30. This weight is already far below the normal level for children. After reading this data, Chu Qiuting googled the standard data again. Based on the time of the original pregnancy, the 7 cute kids are almost 5.5 years old and are old enough to go to school. Putting these issues aside, in terms of physical development, it is clear that they are worse off than ordinary people. He felt a little uncomfortable in his heart, and he was more determined to take good care of them. He bought each of the 7 cute kids a dress, a set of doll shoes, and a set of overalls, and after settling the bill, it cost almost more than 8,000 yuan. This includes learning toys and stuffed animals. All were delivered to his rented room. After Sanba got better in a couple of days, he received them and their new clothes would arrive. After solving the problem of the children's clothing, Chu Qiuting asked Lu Mengli again, "What about you?" "I don't need any." Lu Mengli refused to say. "If you don't say, I'll just buy whatever." Chu Qiuting threatened, "If it doesn't fit, don't blame me." Lu Mengli, "Tell me, I want to buy you a dress too." Chu Qiuting then slowed down his tone and said, "At least, let me get to know you again." "I don't know, usually my pants and clothes are a size M." Lu Mengli didn't want to reveal too much about her figure, so she simply explained. Chu Qiuting didn't pursue it too much, leaving her a little personal space and said, "I estimate you're about 165 and 90 pounds, so I'll go buy something according to that standard, is that okay?" Lu Mengli. Chapter 7 Daddy, I want you to go to the bathroom with me. Chu Qiuting imagined what to wear based on Lu Mengli's figure and appearance. In the end, he chose a sweet and cute snow-white dress that could perfectly outline a slender waist, and a princess dress with a bow on the chest. The set cost more than 400 yuan, which was not considered expensive, so he placed the order. There was also a sweet French floral bubble dress, which was also a waist cinching style, and would look incredibly pure and cute when worn. Although Lu Mengli is the mother of 7 children, she is only in her 20s and is still very young, and she should have the vitality of a young girl. In addition to the dress, Chu Qiuting also bought her a casual printed short-sleeved shirt and denim shorts. As for the contents, he doesn't know, and at this stage, the two of them are not close enough to buy this kind of thing. So he chose a few more pairs of shoes. Heels are essential, as well as flat shoes and high-top shoes, all of which are brands. As for cosmetics and bags, Chu Qiuting was not considering them. With the funds in hand, he would first solve the urgent problems. Only when he had spare money would he choose to buy something practical for Lu Mengli. After spending a few thousand more, Chu Qiuting felt it was well worth it. Such a treasure girl had taken on so much for him, and he deserved to treat her better. Switching to the WeChat chat screen, Chu Qiuting said with a smile on his face, "I bought it for you, and I bought it based on my own taste, so I'm not sure if you like it. Want to send it to me to see?" Lu Mengli returned to her state as a little girl, curious about Chu Qiuting's taste in clothes, and asked carefully. Since having the baby, her expenses on clothes, shoes, and cosmetics have been greatly reduced. She doesn't see herself buying a set of clothes all year round, and basically all her expenses are spent on the baby. At this time, Chu Qiuting bought himself new clothes, and she had no way of refusing. Ripples appeared in her heart, prompting her to try to redate Chu Qiuting. Chu Qiuting thought about it and sent her a set of bow princess dresses that he thought were relatively good, while keeping the other clothes a secret. He didn't want her to feel that he had bought too much and she wouldn't want it. The shoes were also high-top shoes, which looked like a relatively normal outfit. After looking at it, Lu Mengli felt that the dress was too innocent, and if it were in the past, she would have liked it more. But now she is the mother of 7 cute children, so it is a bit inappropriate to act so young. After thinking about it, she asked how much it was to avoid hurting Chu Qiuting's pride, so she made up an excuse and asked, "How much is it?" "It's not expensive, only a few tens of dollars." Chu Qiuting lied and said that it was just over 100 with the shoes. Reading the message, Lu Mengli felt that Chu Qiuting had not told the truth, so she simply copied the picture and pasted it onto a shopping website. After a search, many of the same clothing appeared, but the prices also varied. The price range was 200 to 400 yuan. After carefully looking at the store design, Lu Mengli found that the set Chu Qiuting bought for himself was the most expensive, costing more than 400 yuan. A pair of shoes would also cost nearly 600 yuan, more expensive than the clothes. She immediately hurriedly said to Chu Qiuting that, "This clothes is not suitable for me to wear at this age, why don't you return it and continue to pick the ones that cost tens of dollars? It has already been shipped, so it cannot be returned." Chu Qiuting looked at the message and knew that the girl had probably checked the price as well, and was afraid that she might not want it because it was considered expensive. Moreover, she was still young, and the clothes would suit her perfectly. She would definitely look beautiful in them, so trust my judgment. Lu Mengli didn't know how to refuse for a moment. "Thank you, Chu Qiuting." "You're welcome, it's what I should do." Chu Qiuting suddenly felt a sense of pride well up within him. "By the way, are the babies full? I'll order more if they're not enough." Lu Mengli replied in seconds, "That's enough, there's still a lot left uneaten, and they've all fallen asleep now." "Then you eat some more and go to sleep, I'm at the hospital, Sanbao will be fine." Chu Qiuting explained. "Okay, I'll get up early tomorrow to take your shift." Lu Mengli agreed. Chu Qiuting didn't say anything else, but looked at Sanbao, who was sleeping peacefully, and reached out to touch her little head. Although it was still a little warm, it was already much better than before. A smile could not help but appear on his face. Chu Chou Ting sighed, feeling that everything that had happened today was a bit unreal. He had become a father. He shouted inwardly, and suddenly his mood became surging. The child they had together, a treasure girl, was still so cute. Gradually, the night grew deep. Chu Chou Ting fell asleep with his head on the edge of the bed. When Sanbao got up, he looked at Chu Chou Ting and saw that Lu Mengli was nowhere to be seen. Instead of crying and making a fuss, he shouted brightly, "Daddy!" The first time, Chu Chou Ting didn't wake up. Sanbao shouted again, "Daddy!" Chu Chou Ting woke up with a start, looked at Sanbao with sleepy eyes, and immediately said, "Baby, you're awake, what's wrong?" "Daddy, come up here and let's sleep together." Sanbao said to Chu Chou Ting without any guarding up, "Mom said that if you don't cover yourself at night, you can catch a cold easily, and Sanbao doesn't want Dad to catch a cold either." One sentence. It made Chu Chou Ting's eyes fill with tears instantly. Sanbao's understanding is heartbreaking. Lifting his hand, he touched Sanbao's forehead, which had already gone down with the fever. Chu Chou Ting said softly, "Baby, don't be afraid, Dad's body is twice as strong, I won't catch a cold. It's only a little after 3 o'clock, go back to sleep, be good." "Daddy, I want some water," said Sanbao, whose lips were a little dry. "Okay, Daddy will get you some water." Chu Chou Ying poured a glass of water for Sanbao and then carefully fed him a few mouthfuls himself. Sanbao gulped down a few mouthfuls before stopping and then continued to shout as Chu Chou Ying had just put the glass down, "Daddy, I want to go pee." Chu Chou Ying laughed silently, not impatiently, but instead carefully pampering him, "Then Daddy will take you." "Great." Sanbao grinned and held out his hands for Chu Chou Ting to hug him. He looked at the four-stand, which was mobile, so he picked up Sanbao and pushed the four-stand along as he walked slowly out of the ward. Sanbao hugged Chu Chou Ting tightly, feeling the breath and warmth from his body, and contentedly said, "Daddy's body is so warm, I want Daddy to keep hugging me." "Dad will always hold you," Chu Chou Ting promised. It was late at night and quiet, with only 2 nurses on duty. Chu Chou Ting saw a nurse as he passed by and asked for help. "Excuse me, my daughter wants to go to the bathroom, can you please help?" The female nurse was relatively kind and immediately agreed. Sanbao, however, clung to Chu Chou Ting and said with big, watery eyes, "Dad, I want you to go with me." Chu Chou Ting smiled helplessly and said, "Sanbao, Daddy can't just go to the ladies' room. I need the nurse to take you there. After you've peed, Daddy will hug you, okay?" "Okay." Sanbao is very obedient. As long as you explain patiently, she will listen. Chu Chou Ting felt a surge of emotion as he watched Sanbao being carried by the nurse to the ladies' room. While waiting, his WeChat message sounded. He picked it up and saw that it was from Lu Mengli. The other party had not yet gone to bed. Chapter 8 It's good to have a husband to take care of you. Are you asleep? Reading the message, Chu Chou Ting replied, "I just woke up, Sanbao is in the bathroom." "Sanbao woke you up, didn't he?" Lu Mengli guessed correctly. "It's fine." Chu Chou Ting was still a bit polite in his conversation with Lu Mengli, so he asked, "Why aren't you asleep yet?" "I can't sleep." Lu Mengli added, "I can't stop worrying about Sanbao." Chu Chou Ting was not sure about Lu Mengli's thoughts either. He typed a string of text but then felt it was not suitable. In the end, he said, "Go to sleep. You can see Sanbao jumping around when you wake up tomorrow." "Good night, then." Lu Mengli sent a message saying, "You should get some sleep too. You've worked hard." Without replying, Chu Chou Ting put his phone away and looked back at the bathroom. Sanbao was already being carried out by a nurse. When she saw Chu Chou Ting, Sanbao beamed and said, "Daddy, give me a hug." Chu Chou Ting hurriedly went over to him, took Sanbao from the female nurse's arms, and said gratefully, "Thank you, you've troubled yourself." "You're welcome, this is what I should do." The female nurse smiled at Chu Chou Ting and said, "Your daughter's fever has already subsided. We'll observe her again tomorrow, and if there are no problems, she can be discharged from the hospital." "Thank you very much." Chu Chou Ting thanked her again, then returned to the ward with Sanbao in his arms. Sanbao fell asleep in his arms after just a short while, as if his sleep mode had been activated. After carefully carrying Sanbao to the bed and covering him up, Chu Chou Ting also let out a sigh of relief. He suddenly realized that Lu Mengli had been taking care of 7 adorable babies by herself, from birth to the present, and really didn't know how she had endured it. Just Sanbao's fever for one night made Chu Chou Ting feel a bit exhausted, not to mention when he was in the cradle, he probably couldn't even sleep. Thinking about this, Chu Chou Ting's understanding of Lu Mengli deepened a little more, and his sense of guilt continued to deepen. The next day, as dawn broke, Chu Chou Ting heard footsteps coming from the ward. He hadn't slept deeply, so he woke up immediately. Then, looking a little surprised, he saw that Lu Mengli had already dressed and was by his side. He hurriedly got up, glanced at Sanbao, who was still asleep, and pulled Lu Mengli out of the room. "Why did you come so early? I only need 2 or 3 hours of sleep a day." Lu Mengli looked full of energy, and she didn't know how she did it. With her hair tied in a bun, she looked very capable. She gave Chu Chou Ting a slight smile and said, "You've had a long day, go back and rest, I'll take care of the rest." Chu Chou Ting thought about it for a moment, then said, "Are the girls doing well?" "They're still asleep, I've already heated up some food for them, they'll eat when they wake up." Lu Mengli thought about it for a moment and explained. "That won't do. How about this, give me the key to your house and I'll take care of them." Chu Chou Ting relies on Manhua to get rewards, so that he can provide them with a better material life. So he continued, "Sanba should be fine, so just discharge her from the hospital when the time comes." But Lu Mengli wanted to say something else, but Chu Chou Ting refused, "No buts. Last night you told me to think it over, and I've already given you my answer. I didn't know before, so I could just ignore it, but now that I know, I can't just do nothing." In the end, Lu Mengli was convinced by Chu Chou Ting. She took out the key and handed it to Chu Chou Ting, and then said, "Let's have some breakfast before going back." Chu Chou Ting didn't expect Lu Mengli to have prepared a breakfast for him, and he immediately smiled and said, "Great. You eat, I'll go look for Sanbao." Lu Mengli smiled knowingly and then walked into the house. The other person didn't close the door, but Chu Chou Ting didn't go in, instead, he opened the lunchbox in the hallway. Surprisingly, it wasn't yesterday's leftovers, but what looked like a nutritious breakfast personally made by Lu Mengli. The sandwich was filled with luncheon meat, fried eggs, boiled vegetables, and hot soy milk on the bottom. He grabbed the sandwich and gobbled it up, while taking another sip of soy milk, adding sugar, which directly sweetened his heart. Lu Mengli was inside the house, and she touched Sanbao's forehead with her hand. She was completely relieved after the fever completely subsided. She couldn't help but look out the door again, and through the glass window she saw Chu Chou Ting eating the sandwich he made himself with gusto, and a smile also appeared on his face. It seemed like he sensed Lu Mengli watching him, so Chu Chou Ting glanced back inside the house again, just in time to lock eyes with Lu Mengli. The other party hurriedly looked away again, looking guilty, which made Chu Chou Ting feel amused. After finishing breakfast and drinking the soy milk, Chu Chou Ting walked in and said to Lu Mengli, "Thank you, it was delicious." "Did you eat enough?" Lu Mengli asked softly as she took the lunchbox. "I'm full." Chu Chou Ting laughed and said, "What about you, have you eaten yet?" "I have," Lu Mengli blushed a little and said. But Chu Chou Ting saw through the other person's little thoughts, but he didn't expose them. He just nodded and said, "Shall I go then?" "Okay." Lu Mengli got up and was about to give him a ride. Chu Chou Ting stopped her and said, "Don't come out. While Sanbao is still asleep, you should also take a nap for a while." After saying this, he turned around and left. However, instead of taking a taxi, he ran to the bakery, bought a few meat buns, as well as shumai and dumplings, and ordered 2 cups of black rice porridge and millet porridge before heading back to the hospital. After arriving outside the ward, Chu Chou Ting noticed that Lu Mengli was rubbing her thigh. He then realized that Lu Mengli had a serious bruise on her knee, and he wondered if it was from the fall just now, or from slipping while riding an electric bicycle last night. Unwittingly, Chu Chou Ting's heart ached, and without knocking, he carried the breakfast and walked in. Lu Mengli heard the noise and hurriedly pulled down her pant leg. She looked at Chu Chou Ting in panic and said, "Why are you back?" "I came to bring you breakfast." Chu Chou Ting said, "Put down the bag," and then without further ado, he pushed Lu Mengli down in the chair and said with a serious face, "What happened to your thigh?" Seeing that Chu Chou Ting had discovered it, Lu Mengli stammered, her eyes darting as she said, "It's nothing, it'll be fine in a little while." Still trying to be brave. Chu Chou Ting was a little angry, so he squatted down and pulled Lu Mengli's pant leg open, and immediately saw a large bruise and abrasions. He simply applied a layer of iodophor. Seeing this, Chu Chou Ting looked up again and said in a very strong voice, "Sit still and don't go anywhere." Lu Mengli's body trembled. It was the first time she had seen Chu Chou Ting so strong. She came back to her senses only after he left the ward, then pursed her lips and looked at the wound on her thigh, her emotions mixed. After a while, A female nurse was brought in by Chu Chou-ting, carrying disinfectant and gauze for bandaging. Lu Mingli felt that Chu Chou-ting was making a big deal out of nothing. She opened her mouth to speak, but Chu Chou-ting interrupted her. Don't look like it's nothing, but if the injury damages the bone and causes a chronic problem, I'll let the nurse give you a simple dressing to prevent infection. Hey, young lady, why don't you come out with me for a bit, and we'll take care of the wound in the next room. The female nurse knew the family, and the baby had a high fever and was in the recovery stage, so it was not a good time to disturb them. Since it had come to this, Lu Mingli got up, but when she touched the wound, it hurt so much that she limped a little. Chu Chou-ting hadn't noticed before, but now that he saw her like this, he simply picked her up across the waist. The overwhelming boyfriend energy made it impossible for Lu Mingli to resist, and she exclaimed in alarm before Chu Chou-ting carried her out of the room. The female nurse looked at Chu Chou-ting's barbaric yet romantic way of doing things, but she secretly thought, it's good to have a boyfriend to take care of you. Chapter 9 A cute baby that almost makes you tear up. After disinfecting and treating Lu Mingli's wounds, Chu Chou-ting carried her back to the ward. Sanba had not yet woken up, and he had slept very soundly. Chu Chou-ting told the other party not to walk around too much, and to call the nurse for help if there was anything, before leaving the hospital. Before going home, Chu Chou-ting brought a hearty dinner for the 6 cute babies. After finishing his errands, it was already past 7 o'clock when he arrived at Lu Mingli's home. He took out the key and twisted it a few times before the door opened with a creak. The noise woke up the Menghua kids. When they saw it was Chu Chou-ying standing in the doorway, they all came up to him affectionately, shouting, "Dad! Dad, didn't Mum and Sanba come back yet? Wow, Dad brought so much delicious food again. I want meat buns are the best." Some were concerned about the situation of Sanbao and Lu Mingli, but most were little foodies, intent on the food. Chu Chou-ting noticed, however, that there was one more cute child who was huddled in the corner and not saying a word. Since they all looked exactly the same, Chu Chou-ting couldn't tell which was which. He first said to the 6 cute children in front of him, "My dears, don't worry, go wash your hands first, and I'll pack the buns for you to eat, okay?" "Okay." The cute kids dispersed in an instant, running to wash their hands. When Chu Chou-ting placed the soy milk and donut, meat bun, pan-fried bun and dumplings on the table, filling it up, the cute kids also washed their hands and ran over, their hands still wet. However, the little one wearing a white shirt with some patches still remained motionless, still wary of Chu Chou-ting. After greeting several cute babies, Chu Chou-ting took a meat bun and a cup of soy milk over. However, the other person directly covered his head with the quilt, looking like he was ignoring him. Without lifting the other person's quilt, Chu Chou-ting instead turned to one of the cute babies and asked, "Baby, how many in your family?" "Dad, I'm Wu Bao." The young cute baby, who was only up to Chu Chou-ting's waist, smiled innocently. Her smile was very healing, showing her small white teeth, cute and charming. "So it's Wu Bao, and who's the baby still sleeping?" Chu Chou-ting picked Wu Bao up in his arms, and the other one giggled and kept eating the meat buns, while answering, "Dad, she's Chi Bao." Chu Chou-ting was a little surprised, not expecting Wu Bao to be able to tell whether she was a younger or older sister. Perhaps it was because they had lived together for so long that there was no distinguishing feature that Chu Chou-ting had not yet noticed. So he carried Wu Bao to the edge of the tatami bed, so that sleeping on the floor was also convenient for the baby to get in and out of bed without falling. At this time, Chi Bao was still covered by the quilt, but he could be seen trembling. Chu Chou-ying didn't know what was going on, so he tentatively shouted, "Chi Bao, what's wrong?" Chi Bao didn't say a word, but a faint sob came from somewhere, which made Chu Chou-ying feel a little uncomfortable. "Chi Bao, Daddy's calling you, don't be afraid." Wu Bao blinked his big eyes and followed up with reassurance, "Meat buns are delicious, you should have some too." Then, she handed over the meat bun she had just eaten a little of. Chu Chou-ting put Wu Bao down, then whispered, "My dear, you keep Chi Bao company for Daddy while I call Mum." "Okay, Daddy, don't worry, Chi Bao is just timid, she's like this a lot when Mum's not around." Wu Bao seemed to have grown up a little. She petted the other person's little head, causing the other person to emit a bell-like laugh, which was very soothing and made Chu Chou-ting feel better. He took out his phone and simply called Lu Mingli. It was quickly connected, and before Lu Mingli could say anything, Chu Chou-ying spoke first. "Lu Mingli, I want to ask, what's going on with Chi Bao hiding under the covers by herself and not coming out? Is it because she's afraid of me?" Lu Mingli hesitated for a moment before whispering, "Chi Bao is a bit of an introvert, different from the other sisters, so you need to be a bit patient." "I understand." Chu Chou-ying nodded. "Besides, she is also afraid of strangers." Although Lu Mingli paused for a moment and continued, "Personally, she is very slow to warm up, and she has never had contact with you, so it may make you overthink things. I don't have much to overthink, and even if Qibao resents me, I will accept it, because I have an incompetent father. Chu Ting, however, had long been mentally prepared and said, don't worry, I will let the Mengbao slowly accept me. If it doesn't work in 1 day, then 2 days, and 1 day I will become a qualified father. Good. Lu Mingli also didn't know what to say for a moment, and responded with something that came to mind, adding, oh yes, Bao Bao is allergic to mushrooms, so you must never give her any mushroom-based foods. I understand. At this point, Chu Choying realized that there was still a lot he needed to know about these adorable children, and that he needed to learn gradually. Did Bao Bao like any particular foods, or was there anything she was allergic to? She's not picky, she loves meat. Lu Mingli said simply and straightforwardly. After Chu Ting had learned a little more, he ended the call with Lu Mingli, then walked over to the edge of the bed and continued patiently, Qibao, I'm your father. I'm sure your mother has already told you that when I was away, I was going to faraway places to earn money to buy you meat to eat. Can you please think about what you like about your father? What do you like to eat? Or if there is anything you want, you can tell your father, and I will make it happen for you immediately, okay? Qibao seemed to be moved, and when the other 5 children also came over to comfort her, she finally came out of the quilt. However, her eyes were already teary, and she said with a face full of grievances, I don't want anything from you. Mom said I can't just eat whatever I want. This kind of education is happening to himself, and Chu Ting didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Thinking about the other person's character, Chu Ting didn't care and said, Mom is talking about a bad person, but I am your father, just as close as Mom, so Qibao can rest assured and eat what Dad gives you. Really? Qibao's eyes were clear as he looked at Chu Ting uncertainly. Wu Bao chimed in at this time, Qibao, of course it's true, Mom said she's our dad, and Mom also said that everything we ate yesterday was brought back by Dad, have you forgotten? Dad, I want to eat the chicken leg, it's delicious. Me too, the hamburgers are all meat, and there's salad, I like it. The children all chimed in, their faces covered in food, but they couldn't forget the taste of KFC from yesterday. Chu Ting, however, agreed, okay, next time Dad will take you all out to eat again, but for now, I want to let Qibao eat breakfast first, what do you all think? Qibao, you must listen to your father. Your mother says that's what a good boy does. Your father is a very nice man. He can take us to eat delicious food. Qibao, don't be afraid. I'm here. We'll protect you. Chu Ting was a little moved and saddened by what he heard. This 5-year-old child had been very well educated by Lu Mingli. Everyone looked after each other, unlike the siblings in some families, who often fought and quarreled. Qibao, don't cry. Chu Ting tried to reach out and wipe Qibao's tearful eyes. The other person stiffened for a moment, but in the end did not avoid it. After touching the other person's young, small face, Chu Ting knew that his relationship with Qibao had advanced further. Then he sat down on the bed with a thud and very decisively and naturally picked Qibao up in his arms. The other person did not feel resentful, but instead let Chu Ting hold her in his arms. At this moment, the guard in her heart gradually let go. Chu Ting, however, was secretly sweating. If Qibao resisted, he would have to think of a long-term plan. Fortunately, the other party was obedient, so Chu Ting took the meat bun and said with a smile, Qibao, let Daddy feed you, okay? He thought he would succeed at once, but Qibao shook her head. For a moment, Chu Ting was at a loss. But then, the next second, the situation reversed, and even Qibao's words made Chu Ting almost burst into tears. Chapter 10. He tried to get closer to the cute child, but was kissed by the cute child. I can do it myself. Qibao said in a childish voice, with a hint of timidity in her eyes. My mother told me that if I can do it myself, I shouldn't trouble others. With these words, she nervously took the meat bun and, like a child who had done something wrong, took a careful bite. Chu Choying watched all this and began to think about Qibao's character. She gives the impression of being timid and withdrawn. And even under Chu Choying's direct gaze, she eats very carefully, her eyes alert and full of caution. Chu Choying pulled a tissue over to wipe Qibao's mouth, but she dodged away. This situation made Chu Choying feel helpless. He asked the system for help, can you analyze Qibao's situation for me? My lord, Qibao has a timid and withdrawn personality. She is afraid of strangers and dares not initiate communication with others. The system then provided a solution. The director should gradually gain Qibao's trust, so that she can integrate into group life and expand her social skills. After understanding this, Chu Ting tried to communicate with the other party. Qibao, Daddy has a question for you. Who is your favorite person? Chibo remained silent. However, Wubo was more outgoing and said, Daddy, I like Mommy, she is the most awesome person in the world. Chu Ting noticed that Chibo was also thinking, but was not good at expressing himself. He suddenly had an idea and then asked the other children, what about everyone else? If you can answer, I'll give you a toy as a reward, okay? Yes. The 5 children cheered. Only Chibo remained silent, but Chu Ting kept an eye on the changes in her eyes. It was clear that Chibo was also excited, but she just didn't know how to express her feelings. Seeing that it had had a little effect, Chu Ting took Wubo in his arms and said, while picking up the half-eaten meat bun she had been eating, Wubo is great, whatever toy you like, Daddy will buy it for you. Daddy, I want a watch, the kind you can use to call Mummy. Wubo was surprisingly clever in asking for a valuable present. But Chu Ting was not at all stingy and said, okay, Daddy will buy it for you now. He then picked up his phone and went to the TikTok mall to start choosing a smartwatch for Wubo, in front of all the other children. The price wasn't expensive, just a couple of $100. After looking around, Chu Ting finally chose a wall children's phone watch, and asked Wubo, do you like this one? Yes. Wubo didn't expect Chu Ting to actually buy it, and she was so happy that she started dancing around, saying, Dad is the best. She gave him an excited kiss on the cheek, instantly brightening his mood. Ha ha ha, Wubo, how about another kiss on this cheek? Chu Ting was not satisfied. Okay. Wubo giggled, pouting and kissing Chu Ting on the other cheek, making Chu Ting so satisfied that he almost jumped up and down. After the order was successfully placed, Chu Ting said to Wubo, this watch will take 3 or 4 days to arrive, so Daddy will give it to you then, okay? Thank you, Daddy, said Wubo politely. At this point, the other little ones also joined in, shouting at Chu Ting, Daddy, Daddy, I want a fairy tale book, will you buy it for me? Since Chu Ting could not tell the difference between the sizes of these cute children, he reached out and patted the side of his body, motioning for her to take a seat, and said, Little one, let me ask you, what is your position in the family? The baby thought for a moment before replying, Dad, I'm Lubo, the eldest of the 7 treasures, the sister of Wubo, and I was born 3 minutes after Wubo. Chu Ting was surprised that Lubo had such a detailed answer, and while he was amazed, he also patted the other person's little face in praise. Lubo is awesome, answering so seriously. Dad promises to buy you a fairy tale book, what kind do you like? Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, and the Little Match Girl. Lubo added, Mom used to read them to me every day, and that's what I want. Chu Ting began to fulfill these cute children's wishes one by one. He bought Lubo several copies of every fairy tale book that was available on the market. While doing so, he asked, by the way, Lubo, can you read? At this time, the children were 5 years old and were about to miss the kindergarten age. This was a relatively serious and thorny question, and he pondered after asking it. My mom taught me, she said I'm the smartest, I already know more than 100 words. Lubo bragged, if Dad doesn't believe me, I can show you my homework. Chu Ting was surprised, and then he saw Lubo run to a cabinet, take out his own notes from his small school bag, and run back again with short little legs. Dad, look, this is what Mom taught me. He saw that the exercise book was full of dense clusters of text in pinyin, all relatively few strokes in Chinese. Seeing that the notes were written very neatly and carefully, Chu Ting was overwhelmed with mixed emotions. It was obvious. Lu Mingli had no money to send her children to school, so she could only find time at home to teach them to write. Lubo is awesome. Chu Ting patted the other person's little head, and then looked at the other cute children who were looking at him with anticipation and burning eyes. He smiled slightly and said, so, everyone, have you all learned to read and write like Lubo? Dad, I can do it too. Mom has taught us all. I wrote this, Dad, look. The other children also took out their exercise books and began to show them to Chu Ting. He didn't expect that these children were so self-motivated, and couldn't help but feel moved. He said, my dears, you are all very good, and Daddy is going to give you a reward. However, as Daddy has just returned and still doesn't understand a lot, can I ask you for advice? The children all said in unison, yes. Chu Ting then continued to laugh, saying, that's right. When Mom is not at home, you are all doing your homework, aren't you? Dad, Mom says we should study hard so that we can become useful people in the future. Wubo came over and said, that's why we usually take the lead and let our sisters study and write at home while Mom is at work. Lubo suddenly complained, Dad, Debeo and Erbo always go out to play, catch butterflies and dragonflies, and then Mom makes them into specimens and puts them in their books. Debao and Erbao angrily said, Lu Bao, that's what Mom allows, and she even praised us. Dad, wait, I'll show you the specimens Mom made for us. The two cute kids immediately opened their notebooks as if to show off their medals, and after searching around a bit, they finally got a dragonfly and a butterfly to take shape in the book, which was very beautiful. Shu Chou Ting praised them again, then looked at Qibao, who had always been out of place with everyone else, and asked, Qibao, what about you? Do you have anything fun to share with Dad? Qibao, speak up, I'm not a stranger, what are you afraid of? Children are wise beyond their years. Through contact, Chu Chouying discovered that although Wu Bo is young, he has ideas and a very lively and innocent personality. He is a leader-type personality. Yes, Qibao, Daddy has bought us all things, just you are missing. If you answered Daddy's question, there will be a reward. Haven't you always wanted a transformer? Let Daddy buy it for you. Chu Chouying didn't expect Qibao to like boys' stuff, and suddenly became interested. He said, Qibao, so you like transformers, Dad will buy them for you. With that, he entered the shopping mall in front of Qibao, presenting a dazzling array of transformers, which made Qibao's eyes pop. Tell Dad which one you want. In anticipation, Qibao suddenly raised his hand and pointed to the Optimus Prime children's toy. Qibao likes yellow Optimus Prime. Then Daddy will buy it for you. And this little dinosaur? Do you want it? Shu Chou Ting spoke softly, trying to be patient. But Qibao nodded, her eyes full of expectation. Shu Chou Ting didn't ask Qibao to speak or anything, because he knew that you need to approach children gradually. Only when they fully trust you can you communicate with them effectively. Moreover, the two toys only cost a couple of $100, and Shu Chou Ting still had the means to buy them for her. After buying everything, Shu Chou Ting realized that he had spent time with the children until lunchtime without realizing it. Fortunately, the children had also eaten almost everything. From this, he had also established some friendships with the cute children and learned about their personalities and likes. As he watched them happily playing with the gifts they were about to receive, Shu Chou Ting couldn't help but smile with a fatherly love. Ding! Congratulations to the owner for getting along with the children. Your patience has increased the children's affection for you. Rating B, reward 10,000 yuan in cash, starting to double generation. Ding, doubling success, get 1 times cash reward, 10,000 yuan has been distributed to the owner's account. Please keep up the good work. Shu Chou Ting had never heard such a pleasant sound in the world as the system's reward prompt tone. However, this time it was only 10,000 yuan, so the equivalent amount had not changed. He hoped for more, but of course he did not complain or regret it. After all, there was still a long time to come. At this time, in his account, with the addition of this 10,000 yuan, there was still a deposit of about 35,000 yuan. As for what had been spent, including the hospital fees, it was almost 15,000 yuan, and 10,000 yuan had been given to Lu Mengli. Fortunately, he can still hold out for a while, and Shu Chou Ting doesn't feel any pain. After all, as long as he can make his children happy, that's enough. At this time, Lu Mengli sent a WeChat message. Shu Chou Ting, how are you getting along with the children? Are they causing trouble? Shu Chou Ting smiled slightly, watching the children all go to do their homework, including Qibao, who obediently stayed with the other cute children and helped them with their writing. No, they're all very well behaved. Do you make them practice writing every day? Lu Mengli replied immediately, well, that's the only way to keep them from running off. I've been thinking about something during my time with the kids, and I'd like to discuss it with you. Shu Chou Ting decided to bring the kids to school, which was the top priority. Okay. Lu Mengli replied with a simple word. Shu Chou Ting thought about it for a while and quickly typed, the babies are already 5 years old and know that you have been teaching them at home. Now, I just want to send them to kindergarten. Shu Chou Ting, I actually want to do the same, but the cost of going to kindergarten is really too high. Lu Mengli had some concerns and said, this has always been a problem I've been considering, but I don't have enough ability to let them learn. I'm not a very good mother, I'm sorry. In my eyes, you are the greatest mother there is, without equal. Shu Chou Ting could imagine how much pain Lu Mengli was feeling when she sent these words, so he comforted her, now the children have to go to school too, so don't worry about the money. As long as I'm here, I'll give them a good environment to study in. So, I want to take a look at the kindergarten environment here with you. If possible, it's not time for new students to enroll yet, so while there's still a little time, let's find one for them. Chapter 11. The past was a bit bitter, but the future will bring you sweetness every day. Shu Chou Ting, I've seen it before, the minimum standard fee is 7,000 yuan a year. Lu Mengli, however, explained, there are 7 of us, and we'll need at least 100,000 yuan a year, not to mention other expenses. And once they really start going to school, this amount of money will be essential every year. With me there, their studies won't be delayed. After Chu Chou-ting sent the message, he simply called the other party, as this was a more convenient way to communicate. Lu Mengli answered quickly, and Chu Chou-ting continued, I have enough money for their tuition fees, and I can solve all your worries. The most important thing now is to find a reliable kindergarten, don't you think so? Chu Chou-ting, I'll listen to you. Lu Mengli made up her mind again, but I will also try to make money on my side to subsidize the household expenses, not to rely on you for everything. It's not fair to you. Silly girl, do we need to be polite to each other? Chu Chou-ting suddenly spoke softly, in an extremely intimate tone, saying, you gave birth to 7 cute babies for me, plus all the hardships you have suffered for them over the years. If it's unfair, it's also towards you. On the phone, there was silence on Lu Mengli's end. Chu Chou-ting could vaguely hear a choking sound. Lu Mengli, I've said it before, I will take good care of you and the children, and I don't just say it casually, please believe me. I understand. Lu Mengli's voice trembled slightly as she said, San Bao will be discharged from the hospital this afternoon. We will discuss their schooling with you when we get back, is that okay? Okay, do you want me to pick you up? Chu Chou-ting asked again with concern. Lu Mengli smiled and said, no, save your money, don't worry. Okay, we'll talk when we get back. Chu Chou-ting said lightly. Just as he was about to hang up, Lu Mengli whispered, Chu Chou-ting, thank you. Chu Chou-ting grinned and hung up. After that, he began to search online for kindergartens in the city. After his final search, he found that there were several private kindergartens near where he lived, along with their tuition fees. The fees for each kindergarten are different, but they are generally divided into categories. The lowest education fee is 500 yuan a month, and the highest is 800 yuan. There are also meal fees and heating fees, etc., which add up to nearly 1,000 yuan a month for a cute child. 7 is 7,000 yuan, and it will cost more than 80,000 yuan a year. After learning about it, he knew what to expect. Now he has over 30,000 yuan in savings, and if he uses the super double card, he will still need about 20,000 yuan. Suddenly, Chu Chou-ting began to worry about money again. Dad, how do you think my handwriting is? At this time, Wu Bao came to Chu Chou-ting's side, looking forward to praise. Chu Chou-ting looked at the other person's handwriting and it was quite neat, and it was still the words Dad and Mom. He felt warm and fuzzy all of a sudden. After picking up Wu Bao, Chu Chou-ting still couldn't tell which one was which, but that didn't stop him from praising, you've written really well, baby. Did your mother teach you all this? Yes. Wu Bao's innocent eyes were dark and round, and when she smiled, she looked very pure. She said, this is Mommy, and this is Daddy. He. Did your mother teach you the word daddy too? Chu Chou-ting was curious. Well, Mom has taught us a lot of words, I'll write them down for you later. Wu Bao said, struggling to get off of Chu Chou-ting. Chu Chou-ting quickly let go, and then Wu Bao ran to the table and sat upright to write. Looking at the other cute kids, they were also writing carefully stroke by stroke. It was Bao who was more mischievous, scribbling and doodling, not writing at all. And he often interferes with the other cute babies. Chu Chou-ting walked over and saw that Bao was actually drawing, freehand, and was curious, baby, what are you drawing? Dad, I'm drawing astronauts. Bao said with a smile, this is a spaceship, and this is an astronaut. Upon closer inspection, one can still make out the outline a little. Chu Chou-ting smiled and said, baby, I didn't realize you were so talented at drawing. But Daddy, can you teach me how to write? Bao said with a look of expectation, I can't write spaceship, and astronaut either. Mom taught me once, but I've forgotten. Chu Chou-ting immediately found an empty seat and sat down, then picked Bao up and placed her on his lap. He then said carefully, come, Daddy will teach you how to write. Bao is naughty, but Chu Chou-ting understands that she likes to explore new things and is curious about all kinds of new things. And it seems that she is interested in things like spaceships. After Chu Chou-ting held Bao's small, tender hands and wrote out spaceship and astronaut stroke by stroke, he corrected himself, baby, in our country, there is something that can be sent into the sky, called a rocket. As for spaceships, they are for aliens. There is a difference between the two. He patiently explained, our great astronauts ride in rockets, not spaceships. Got it? Wow, Dad, you're amazing. Bao exclaimed in admiration. I get it, aliens ride in spaceships, astronauts ride in rockets, and they all fly up to the sky in a flash, right? Yes, yes, our baby is so smart. Chu Chou-ying beamed. Dad, I get it, I'll write it. Erbo said, and began to immerse herself in her drawing. Chu Chou-ying let go of her hand and let her down to study on her own. The system's prompt sounded again, ding. Congratulations, host, for teaching Erbo new knowledge. Rating, B. You have received a 10,000 yuan cash reward. Doubling is now in progress. Ding. Doubling successful. You have received double the cash reward. 20,000 yuan has been deposited into your account. Please keep up the good work. Chu Chou-ting felt his mood improve as he received the cash again. With the deposit, he had just over 55,000 yuan. Using the doubling card, that was 110,000 yuan. With the tuition fees for the cute kids paid, he felt a little relieved. He looked around again, and the cute kids continued to study with their heads buried in their books. To get a sense of their sizes, Chu Chou-ting thought for a moment and then shouted at the cute kids, "Babies, Daddy's going out for a while and will buy you some food on the way. You just stay at home and do your homework, and don't run around." Yes. The cute kids answered in unison. Chu Chou-ting was still not at ease, so he added, "When I come back, I will check everyone's homework. If anyone has done a good job, I will reward them. If anyone is lazy, they won't get a reward. Dad, don't worry, I'll supervise my sisters." Wubo said with a smile. Mom usually tells me the same thing. Wubao, I'll leave my sisters in your care. Chu Chou-ting immediately recognized her from her personality. The other one also nodded desperately to show her commitment. Then he turned and left, going to the supermarket. Before leaving, he closed the door, but did not lock it. In case the house caught fire, they could escape. After arriving at the big supermarket, Chu Chou-ting went on a shopping spree, buying everything the family lacked. Of course, this included 7 different colored bracelets, which could be used to identify each of them and also as a small gift for them. After the trip, the shopping cart was full. At checkout, it cost thousands of dollars. Chu Chou-ting sighed that the money was really not durable, but he felt that it was worth spending. After leaving the supermarket with a total of 6 bags, Chu Chou-ting had to take a taxi back. It was already past 3 p.m. when he arrived back and the children were hungry, so Chu Chou-ting wanted to get them something to eat. Just as he arrived at the door, Chu Chou-ting was about to put down the bags and open the door when one of the children volunteered to open it. Then all the children came running out and shouted at him, "Dad, let us help you carry it." The children were all very understanding. Even Shibao, who was quiet, came over to help. Chu Chou-ting laughed and said, No, Dad can carry it. Dad's hands are all red from carrying the bags, so we want to help a little. The girls said, and they took a turn carrying the bags. They found them very heavy, and in the end, 2 of them carried 1 bag each, and they carried the shopping bags into the house. As he watched their busy figures, Chu Chou-ting's face broke into a smile. He suddenly realized that normally, he eats, sleeps, and does everything alone, but now that there are a few more children, it has become lively. After entering the house, Chu Chou-ting said to the cute kids, "Babies, I have a gift for you. Do you want it?" "Yes." The children were overjoyed. Chu Chou-ting took out a few bracelets from his pocket, a total of 7 colors. The children all liked these new gadgets and came running over, their eyes falling into the bracelets. "Wow, what beautiful bracelets! Then Daddy will give them one by one, starting with the big red one for big treasure." Chu Chou-ting was being a meanie and deliberately said this. Big Treasure immediately ran out of the crowd and said, "Daddy, I'm over here." After noticing the difference between Debao and the other cute kids, he realized that there really wasn't any difference. He wondered how Lu Mengli managed to give birth to such similar children. At least they all had a birthmark on their face, so he could tell them apart. "Here, let Daddy put it on you." Chu Chou-ting let out a sigh of relief after putting the wristband on. Debao couldn't take his hands off it. After Chu Chou-ting had put the wristbands on the other cute kids one by one, they all studied their wristbands. After clapping his hands, Chu Chou-ting said to all the cute kids, "Listen up, my dears. From now on, this will be your lucky charm. No one can take it off. You must take good care of it. Understand?" "Yes, Daddy, we won't take it off." The cute kids answered in unison. There was also a yellow wristband, which Chu Chou-ting reserved for San Bao. Once he can tell them apart, he will buy them new silver bracelets and have their names and birth dates engraved on them. You're such good girls, so now Daddy will start cooking. Tell Daddy what you want to eat. Seeing that it was getting late, Chu Cho Ting was about to order takeaway. The children cheered again. Daddy, I want a chicken leg. I want ice cream. Daddy, can I have some chocolate? Crunch. At that moment, the iron gate opened. Chu Choying and the others turned around instantly, and Lu Mengli came in, holding Sanbao and carrying something. Seeing this, the cute kids gathered around, calling affectionately, Mom. Sanbao is back with Mommy. I want a hug too. Lu Mengli, however, put Sanbao down, and noticing that everyone had a wristband on their hand, she looked at Chu Choying and smiled. You bought them for them? Well. Chu Cho Ting said with some embarrassment, the 7 children look exactly the same, I can't tell them apart, so I had to give each of them a wristband, so that I can tell them apart in the future. Puff. Lu Mengli couldn't help but laugh out loud. It was the first time that Chu Cho Ting had seen Lu Mengli laugh so easily, and he couldn't help but giggle alone. Isn't that silly? It's not your fault. Lu Mengli's eyes softened as she said, sometimes, I can't tell who's who without paying attention. It's mainly because your genes are so strong that, apart from differences in personality, it's hard to tell their sizes from appearances. Chu Choying teased her. Lu Mengli suddenly blushed, and then she looked at the happy faces of the children and the large pile of shopping bags on the table, not all of which had been taken out yet. A feeling of tenderness welled up in her heart as she said, Chu Choying, you're spending money recklessly again. These are all necessities. Chu Cho Ting laughed and said, it's just that you and Sanbao have both returned, so in a while I'll order takeout and we can eat together. But Lu Mengli stopped him, saying, don't order, it's expensive and not clean. I'll cook it. But the kids want chicken legs and ice cream potato chips. Can you cook it? Chu Cho Ting asked hesitantly. But she saw Lu Mengli shaking her head and smiling wryly. I know you want to satisfy all their wishes, and I know you love them very much, but these kids are still growing up, so they should eat less junk food. So just once? Chu Choying tried to communicate with Lu Mengli in the hope of gaining her consent. This won't happen again. Seeing Chu Choying meekly pleading for the children, she felt warm in her heart, and she said softly, I'll cook, you go play with the kids for a while. Thank you, Lao Chu Cho Ting. When Chu Cho Ting got excited, he almost blurted it out, but fortunately stopped in time. Lu Mengli heard it, and she understood what Chu Cho Ting was going to say next. Unable to help herself, she blushed again, nodded lightly, and turned around to go into the kitchen. Although the basement is very dark and damp, and the lights need to be on all the time, there is a kitchen and bathroom, which are kept tidy by Lu Mengli. Even when the children are at home, they don't mess around, as if they have received a good education from Lu Mengli. They also help with the cleaning and tidying up together. It can only be said that Lu Mengli has done a good job with their education. Staring at Lu Mengli's back, she took the rubber band off her wrist and tied her hair up, looking neat and tidy as she entered the kitchen. Chu Cho Ting, however, gave a knowing smile and looked at Sanbao and said, Baby, are you still feeling unwell? Sanbao was currently gathered with the other cute children, and when she heard Chu Cho Ting's greetings, she became coquettish. Daddy, I'm fine. I saw that my sisters have bracelets on their hands, and I want one too. Chu Cho Ting naturally hadn't forgotten about her, and took the prepared yellow wristband out from behind his back. He laughed while saying, Tada here, Sanbao's wristband is ready. Daddy will put it on you now. Come, hold out your little hand. Sanbao extended her small, tender hands, looking forward to Chu Cho Ting putting the wristband on her. Then she shook the wristband a little and said with a smile, Thank you, Daddy. Well, that's a good girl. Chu Cho Ting saw that Sanbao was fine, and his heart followed suit, relieved. Then he said to everyone, I just discussed it with your mother, and today we'll allow the kids to eat ice cream and chicken legs, but not too much of this, or it will give you a stomachache. So from now on, let's agree to eat it once a week, okay? Instantly, the 7 cute kids all started to argue. Chu Cho Ting noticed that Chi Bao also seemed to be very happy to eat the food. This was the first time she had interacted with everyone together, and she couldn't help but think that perhaps Lu Mengli had returned and made her bolder. Maybe. It was recognition of Chu Cho Ting. Anyway, Chu Cho Ting felt that this was a good thing. So, he placed an order for takeaway, ordering 8 cups of ice cream, as well as 2 family buckets and drinks. Although it cost another 300 yuan, Chu Cho Ting was happy with it. However, this was not counted as a reward for personally taking care of the cute kids, so Chu Cho Ting was unable to get a reward. Chu Cho Ting didn't care about this either. He knew that there was still a long way to go, and there would always be things that he had to do personally waiting for him. After ordering the takeaway, Chu Choding said to the cute kids, "Next, Daddy is going to help Mommy cook, so can you guys play by yourselves for now?" "Yes." The children were very sensible and answered in unison. Just as Chu Choding watched them happily chasing after each other and showing off the wristbands in their hands, his phone rang. He checked his pocket and realized that it wasn't his phone ringing, but Lu Mengli's. He had forgotten to take his phone out of her bag. Just as Chu Choding was about to call out to the other person, Lu Mengli ran out with a panicked look on her face, then took out her phone from her bag and looked at the caller ID, her face looking even more displeased. I saw that Lu Mengli didn't answer it either, hung up directly, and then looked at Chu Ting's eyes and avoided them. Chu Ting was suspicious and asked, "Why didn't you answer it?" "It's a harassing call," Lu Mengli said, and then turned around and entered the kitchen, taking her phone with her. Chu Ting didn't think much of it and followed into the kitchen, preparing to help the other person. Lu Mengli said, "By the way, we don't have enough salt at home. Would you go downstairs to the store and buy a bag for me?" "Okay." Chu Ting nodded and turned around to leave. When the cute kids saw that Chu Ting was going out, they also wanted to go with him. Chu Ting's face returned to a smile, and he took Wu Bo and Debao by the hand before leaving the house. With the two cute kids leading the way, Chu Ting also found the store, which was just a distance of no more than 50 meters from home and just around the corner. When they arrived at the store, the owner seemed to know them very well and said in a friendly manner, "Oh, the babies are here to buy something." "Good evening, Grandma, we want to buy a bag of salt." "Okay, Grandma will get it for you." The old man looked at Chu Choding again, and while holding the salt, asked, "Baby, who is this?" Before Wu Bao could say anything, Sanbao jumped in and said, "Grandma, he's my father's back." The shopkeeper was taken aback and looked at Chu Choding again, feeling a little incredulous. After all, Chu Choding also looked very young. Obviously seeing the old woman's confusion, Chu Choding smiled and said, "Hello, Auntie, I'm the biological father of Wu Bo and the others. I was away before and only recently returned. I heard that you took special care of them before, so I'd like to thank you here." The old woman was surprised, but immediately returned to her smile and said, "Hello, hello. You have no idea how hard it was for your wife to take care of the girls every day before you returned. I'm so glad you're back. You must take good care of the two of them in the future." "I will." Chu Ting took out his phone and said, "Auntie, how much is it? I'll scan it for you." "Are you referring to this bag of salt or the whole thing?" the old lady asked. "The whole thing?" Chu Ting was puzzled. The old lady laughed and said, "Your wife has racked up quite a few debts at our store, and we understand that it's not easy for her to raise 7 kids on her own, so we've let it slide. Now that you're back, if you can afford it, pay off your wife's debts as well." "I say, you old woman, what are you talking about?" After Chu Ting understood, an old man rushed out of the house, frowning and saying, "That, young man, don't listen to her nonsense." Chu Ting knew that the uncle was trying to spare Lu Mengli's face, and it was true that the aunt was thinking about making money. But Chu Ting also didn't intend to let Lu Mengli continue to owe people favors. After all, it wouldn't be long before they moved away. So he said generously, "Uncle, just pay whatever the amount is. I'll add it all up for you." The aunt gave the uncle a disgruntled look, then said to Chu Ting with a smile, "It's 761 yuan in total, plus the salt, it's 762 yuan. We can round it down for you if you don't want to take it." "Thank you." Chu Ting scanned the QR code directly and paid in one go. Then he took the salt and rushed, holding the hands of the two children, smiled at them and continued, "Uncle, Aunt, then we'll go. Bye, grandparents." The two Wu Bao children also waved politely to them. The uncle and aunt also smiled and said, "Bye, sweetheart, take care." Chu Ting nodded and turned back, walking towards home. At this moment, he suddenly realized that Lu Mengli's life seemed to be even more difficult than he had imagined. His mood instantly became a little worse, and a sense of guilt rose again. The two cute kids sensed that Chu Ying's face was not quite right, and they couldn't help but ask out loud, "Dad, what's wrong?" Chu Ying came back to his senses and smiled slightly at them. "Dad's fine, I was just thinking." "Oh yes, my darlings, let me ask you a question. How long ago did you and Mom move to this neighborhood?" "I don't remember." Debao shook his head. Wu Bao thought for a moment and then counted on his fingers. "Dad, it seems like a long time." Chu Ying, who did not get a general answer, did not mind and said, "Okay, Dad knows." After that, they also came to the door. Before they opened it, Chu Ying heard Lu Mengli seemed to be on the phone. Give me a few more days, and I will definitely pay it back. I promise, it won't be overdue again. Chapter 12, the father cooks for himself and indirectly kisses the treasure girl. After listening outside, Chu Ting felt a little uncomfortable. His hands couldn't help but clench up, but he realized that it would hurt Wu Bao and San Bao, so he loosened them. Then he took a deep breath, restored his smile, and pushed open the door to enter. He happened to see Lu Mingli finish her phone call, and the two of them looked at each other again. Chu Ting smiled slightly and said, I bought the salt back. Okay, thanks. Lu Mingli smiled politely. But Chu Ting could tell that she was forcing a smile. After taking the salt from Chu Ting, she turned and went into the kitchen while looking at the cute kids, who were still laughing and joking. She put the tissues, hangers, towels, baby bath lotion, etc., that she had bought from the supermarket on the table, and all the kids helped to clean up, and the smile on her face could not help but appear. After letting go of the hands of San Bao and Wu Bao, Chu Ting crouched down and whispered, My dears, you guys play first, our ice cream will be here soon, and Daddy will give it to you again in a while, okay? Okay. The cute kids immediately went off to play on their own. Chu Ting, however, went into the kitchen. While watching Lu Mingli washing vegetables, he came over and, after thinking for a while, finally said, I've settled the account of the canteen. Lu Mingli, who was washing vegetables, trembled slightly and her hands stopped moving. She lowered her head, her eyes reddening, and said, Thank you. Hearing her choked voice, Chu Ting knew that Lu Mingli was not feeling well. She was shouldering the entire family alone, and the burden was so heavy, but she had never mentioned it to him. Therefore, Chu Ting also mustered his courage, grabbed her shoulders with both hands, and turned her around to face him. There was distress and pain on her delicate face, and watery mist gradually appeared in her eyes. The next second, crystal tears welled up and slid down her face. Chu Ting reached out and wiped them away for her, while softly saying, Mingli, what I want to say is, if there is anything, for the sake of the children, let's bear it together. I don't want you to keep anything inside. In the past, you were alone and had nowhere to complain, but now that I'm back, you can totally rely on me. Lu Mingli's eyes were clear and transparent. Long lashes still had tears hanging from them. After listening to Chu Ying's words, she forced a smile and said, I'm fine, don't worry. I still have to cook dinner, the kids are waiting to eat. She tried to avoid the subject. But Chu Ting grabbed her shoulders and said, Mingli, I want to know how you have raised the children all these years. Will you tell me? Lu Mingli pursed her lips, and finally let out a heavy breath, saying, Chu Ting, to be honest, I feel very secure with you by my side, and I have never felt more relaxed. As for my own affairs, I will solve them myself, I don't want to burden you. Chu Ting felt that Lu Mingli was very stubborn and independent. He still had no idea about many things. He had always wanted to find a time to have a good talk with Lu Mingli. Now he felt that this was the perfect time, so he continued to pursue the matter. I am also the father of the child, so there is no question of being a burden. What I want is for you and the child to be well. I am a man, and it is up to me to take care of the family. You have taken on enough for me, so please let me share some of the burden for you, okay? Lu Mingli's hand loosened and tightened and loosened, and finally a smile appeared on her face. She said very calmly, Chu Ting, if I hadn't left you in the first place, how good would that have been? If I had been braver and told you about all of this in the first place, how good would that have been? But I've never regretted it. Watching my babies grow up day by day, I feel that everything I've done has been worthwhile. Even if I'm going through a hard time right now, every day when I see the smiles on their faces, it makes my heart feel so sweet. You should understand what I mean, right? Chu Ting felt that Lu Mingli was changing the subject, and he felt that he had to take some drastic measures, so he stopped beating around the bush. Mingli, I heard it at the door, is your credit card overdue, and how much do you owe? In fact, Lu Mingli also guessed in her heart that Chu Ting had discovered something, which was why he was talking to her about this. So when Chu Ting asked, she wasn't that surprised. She was torn. But Chu Ting continued, if there is a problem with your credit, it will affect your children's schooling and their future jobs. So Mingli, tell me the truth now. I know you don't want to get me into trouble, but as long as it can be solved with money, it's not a problem, understand? Lu Mingli knew all this, which was why she had been unable to sleep or eat for some time. She was afraid of the impact of the overdue credit card. Taking a deep breath, Lu Mingli finally confessed, I have 12 credit cards and owe a total of 30,000 yuan. I haven't touched the 10,000 yuan you gave me, because that's for the kids' living expenses. So I was thinking that as soon as my salary is paid, I'll pay it all back. After getting the answer, Chu Choying didn't say a word, and immediately took out his phone to transfer 40,000 yuan to Lu Mengli. Although his money suddenly became a few thousand yuan, Chu Choying knew that Lu Mengli's problem must be solved first. Chu Cho-ting, are you crazy? Why are you giving me so much? Lu Mengli stared in disbelief, saying, I will pay it back slowly. If it's not enough, I have more. Chu Cho-ting said firmly, your man has nothing else but money. Hearing the word man, Lu Mengli froze on the spot. Chu Cho-ting also suddenly realized that his words were a bit inappropriate, but since they were already out, he continued, after graduation, I will live alone, and I don't have many expenses during the week, so I have saved a lot of money. Just pay back the money without worry, do you understand? Lu Mengli is a woman who is meticulous in her calculations. So Chu Cho-ting has seen everything he has done for the children and for her in the past 2 days. The expenses alone have already been tens of thousands of dollars. In the past, she would never have dared to think about it. Seeing that Lu Mengli was dumbfounded and clutching her hand, Chu Cho-ting's hot temper returned, and he directly took her phone and handed it to Lu Mengli, saying, unlock, collect the money, and repay the loan. Tears welled up in Lu Mengli's eyes again, and she slowly took the phone and accepted the money in front of Chu Cho-ting. At the moment, her emotions were very complicated. For Chu Cho-ting, before last night, she did not have any feelings for him. They had only had a one-night stand, and there was no way to talk about true feelings. But in the past 2 days, Lu Mengli's feelings towards Chu Cho-ting have changed greatly. So much so that now, she is also confused about what kind of feelings she has for Chu Cho-ting. The two have always treated each other politely, not at all like family. It is only because of the relationship between the Menghua that they are under the same roof. Chu Cho-ting, this money. Shut up. Chu Cho-ting knew what the girl was going to say, and suddenly became strong, saying, Lu Mengli, listen carefully, don't ever again distinguish between you and me. Although you and I have never been in a relationship, and this is only the first time we've met, I hope that from now on, we can try to cultivate our relationship. Lu Mengli didn't expect Chu Cho-ting to be so transparent and direct, and for a moment, she was speechless. Pay back the money first, then take a break. Chu Cho-ting then took off the apron from Lu Mengli and said, I'll cook dinner, and let you taste my earnings. Let me be a super dad tonight. Lu Mengli suddenly laughed at Chu Cho-ting's words. She no longer acted pretentiously, but looked at Chu Cho-ting, who was unable to tie the apron no matter what, and went behind him to carefully tie a bow for him, while whispering, Thank you, father. Hearing this, Chu Cho-ting knew that Lu Mengli's heart had been opened by him. He smiled and said, You're welcome, mother. As long as you two are happy, that is my greatest happiness. I will also try to get along with you. Lu Mengli said another reassuring thing, and then turned around and left the kitchen. She was going to replace a few credit cards to avoid trouble if she really got a credit record. At this time, Chu Cho-ting was left alone in the kitchen. Looking at the prepared ingredients, which included white bok choy, pork belly and garlic shoots, as well as chicken feet and eggs, Chu Cho-ting was greatly troubled. Because at home, he rarely cooks, and basically orders takeaways or eats instant noodles. But everything is difficult at the beginning, so Chu Cho-ting opened TikTok and started searching for cooking videos. Finally, he confirmed the recipe. Stir-fry pork belly and garlic shoots. Marinate chicken feet. Stir-fry Chinese cabbage. Make egg soup with eggs and seaweed. And braise prawns. First, he cut out the side dishes and then prepared some scallions, ginger, and garlic. After a busy 10 minutes, his phone rang. After washing his hands, he saw that the takeaway had arrived, so he ran out directly while still wearing his apron. After bringing the takeaway in, the children were already very hungry. Chu Cho-ting could see that the children's mouths were watering, so he laughed, My dears, let's not eat the ice cream yet. I'll put it in the fridge and we'll eat it after dinner, okay? Good. The children stopped crying and obediently waited for Chu Cho-ting to distribute the food. At this time, Lu Mengli also came out of the room and saw Chu Cho-ting distributing the family bucket to the children. A happy smile appeared on her face. Don't eat too much, save some room for dinner, do you hear me? Lu Mengli reminded the children. We know, Mom, we'll save it for later. Wu Bao answered first. Chu Cho-ting felt comfortable when he saw the family enjoying themselves. Just as he was about to go into the kitchen, Sanbao came over with a piece of chicken and shouted, Dad, you eat too. Okay, Dad will have a piece too. Chu Cho-ting bent down, and then Sanbao stuck out his arm and shoved it into Chu Cho-ting's mouth. The other Menghua kids also gave Lu Mengli a big chicken leg, saying affectionately, Mom, this big chicken leg is for you to eat. Lu Mengli also understood how the children felt, so she didn't refuse and took it, saying, "Thank you, my dear. You can keep the rest for yourselves to eat. Mom and Dad will save it to eat with you," the cute children said wisely. Amidst the laughter, Chu Qiuting glanced at Lu Mengli and then walked into the kitchen. The other person also came in with a chicken leg, saying to Chu Qiuting, "Let me do it." "No, I said I'd cook today, so you just teach me how to control the heat," Chu Qiuting stubbornly said. In fact, this can also indirectly get rewards from the system. "You eat the chicken leg." Lu Mengli smiled slightly, but said, "I have already paid off all the loans, and there is still 15,000 yuan left, which I have sent to your mobile phone." Chu Qiuting, however, was cutting vegetables while turning back to Lu Mengli, trying to look cool, and said, "Keep the money, I still have some here." As soon as the words fell, a sudden tingling made Chu Qiuting's hand shrink violently. Lu Mengli was startled, and when she looked at Chu Qiuting's hand again, she saw that it had been cut by the kitchen knife, breaking the skin. Without thinking, Lu Mengli directly grabbed Chu Qiuting's hand and shoved it into her mouth. Is this considered an indirect kiss? Chapter 13 Showing off in front of Manhua and gaining culinary skills. Lu Mengli sucked frantically on the blood that kept dripping from Chu Qiuting's hand. There was a strong smell of blood in her mouth, but she didn't mind at all. Chu Qiuting watched all of this with a smile on his lips, and retracted his hand, saying, "I'm fine." "Does it hurt?" Lu Mengli looked at the deep cut on her finger and asked with concern. "It doesn't hurt." Chu Qiuting saw that Lu Mengli didn't mind at all, and there was still blood at the corner of her mouth, so he reached out and gently wiped it away. After the other person reacted, she frowned and said, "You go rest, I'll get the medicine box and bandage you up." However, when Lu Mengli turned around, she was suddenly pulled back by Chu Qiuting. Lu Mengli, due to inertia, immediately took 2 steps back and then directly fell into Chu Qiuting's arms. Her body trembled and stiffened. Smelling the faint fragrance on her, he remembered that 6 years ago, she also smelled like this, which was somewhat nostalgic. This was a belated embrace, and he hoped it was not too late. Chu Qiuting's voice carried a touch of pity, which made Lu Mengli unable to hold back her tears. "What are you doing, suddenly saying this?" Lu Mengli wanted to get up, but she was held back. "Stop it, I'll get a band-aid." Chu Qiuting let go only then, and then saw Lu Mengli already turn around and leave the kitchen. Ding detected that Lu Mengli's heartbeat index had exceeded the standard, and her favorability towards her owner had skyrocketed, breaking past 60%, with a rating of A. She had received a 120,000 yuan cash reward, and the double effect had not been triggered. "Please keep up the good work." The sudden happiness took Chu Qiuting by surprise. The money had also been credited to his account in real time, and Chu Qiuting couldn't believe it after looking at it. After counting carefully and confirming that it was 6 digits and 120,000 yuan, he became instantly excited. His originally depleted savings had become 100,000 yuan because of Lu Mengli's increased favorability towards him. Now, there was a way to pay for Menghua's tuition fees and there was no need to worry anymore. Lu Mengli also came over with a medical kit and saw Chu Qiuting smiling foolishly in place, so she couldn't help but roll her eyes and say, "Chu Qiuting, what are you smiling at? You're still happy even though you're hurt, are you stupid from the pain?" But Chu Qiuting continued to laugh. "Lu Mengli, you are really my lucky goddess." Without a clue, Lu Mengli had no idea what Chu Qiuting was talking about. "Hey, Chu Qiuting, are you okay?" Lu Mengli became worried and reached out to feel Chu Qiuting's forehead. Seeing that he didn't have a fever, she said, "Don't scare me." Chu Qiuting laughed again and said, "It's okay, I just feel that today our family is all together and happy." Lu Mengli rolled her eyes again, and while opening the medicine chest, she first disinfected Chu Qiuting's wound with alcohol, and then carefully applied a band-aid. During the process, blood was still oozing out, which looked painful to watch, and made Lu Mengli feel a little guilty. She asked, "Does it still hurt?" After moving his index finger slightly, Chu Qiuting felt that it wasn't a big deal and said, "It's not a problem, I can continue working." "No, I'm afraid you'll cut off the rest of your fingers." "I'll do it." Lu Mengli made a rare joke. Subconsciously, she herself didn't notice that her communication with Chu Qiuting had suddenly become a little more intimate, without being as polite as before. Bao poked his head in at this time, and when he saw that Chu Qiuting and Lu Mengli were facing away from each other, he suddenly exclaimed, "Dad, are you hurt?" Chu Qiuting looked at the orange wristband on the other person's hand and said with a smile, Bao, Daddy is not hurt. This is just a surprise from Mommy." Lu Mengli's eyes widened for a moment, and she was both angry and amused. She felt that Chu Cho Ting really knew how to joke around. If the cute kids find out what's going on, won't I have to take the blame? Wow, I want a surprise too. Bao's words almost made Lu Mengli stumble. She even patted Chu Ting on the shoulder and said, "You're going to corrupt the child." Ha ha ha, that's not going to happen. Chu Ting then said to her Bao, "Honey, this surprise needs to be given to you by your boyfriend in the future, your parents can't give it to you now." Ha? What's a boyfriend? Can you eat it? Bao was being quirky. Seeing Bao's confused and curious expression, Lu Mengli couldn't help but laugh out loud. She felt that Chu Ting was leading Bao astray, so she quickly said to Bao, "Baby, the kitchen is small, and in a while, mommy is going to be cooking, so if you're not careful, you could get burned. Go play with your sisters." "Okay, bye, mommy and daddy." Bao ran off again, giggling. After Bao left, Chu Ting and Lu Mengli exchanged glances again, and they both felt that the atmosphere had become a little more ambiguous. Lu Mengli's heart was beating a little faster, and she didn't dare to look directly into Chu Ting's eyes. She went over to the side and started taking over the pork belly that Chu Ting hadn't finished cutting yet. She couldn't bear to look directly at him, but said, "Chu Ting, have you never cooked before?" "Yes." Chu Ting also realized that he had cut the meat a little thickly, but still said with justification, "Usually when I'm alone, I just eat instant noodles." Lu Mengli was speechless for a moment. Is instant noodles really the only thing you know how to cook? Not really. Chu Ting continued to smile playfully, saying, "I can also chop ham and eggs." Lu Mengli then realized that Chu Ting was teasing her. She blushed, and, angry, she said while chopping the meat, "You just go play with the kids, I can do the kitchen by myself." The thought of cooking for her adorable children made her feel that if she got an A-level reward, she would be very lucky. That's why Chu Ting just wouldn't leave, no matter how hard he was being driven away. Instead, he insisted on getting his hands dirty and said, "Lu Mengli, you have to give me a chance to show off in front of the kids, so that they know that not only their mother can cook, but their father is also an all-rounder, right?" Seeing Chu Ting's serious expression, Lu Mengli couldn't argue with him, and couldn't help but laugh out loud and say, Okay, I'll give you the chance to show off, but if you get hurt again, don't blame me for kicking you out." Chu Ting immediately promised, "Of course." Lu Mengli, however, shook her head with a wry smile, unable to do anything about him. After all the side dishes were taken care of, Lu Mengli watched as Chu Ting carefully placed the pork belly in the pan while watching a cooking tutorial on TikTok. After that, during the continuous stir-frying, she saw that he was about to sprinkle the black beans, so she hurriedly shouted, "Don't rush it, the oil from the pork belly hasn't been forced out yet, keep simmering." With a master chef in front of him, Chu Ting simply turned off the music and said to Lu Mengli with a smile, "Chef, I'll do as you say. You just teach me how to do it in a while, and it will definitely taste delicious." What a flatterer. Lu Mengli smiled and pouted. However, Lu Mengli was also wholeheartedly teaching Chu Ting how to cook, and would immediately remind him if the heat was not right. Or she would promptly rescue the dish if too much salt was used. The kitchen instantly became as lively as a battlefield, even more lively than outside. It was finally dark when the dishes were all finished. After they were served, although the aroma was overpowering, Lu Mengli couldn't bear to look at them. On the contrary, Chu Ting was in a great mood, greeting a group of cute children and saying, "Babies, dinner time. Where's the rice?" Lu Mengli suddenly had a major life complaint and stared blankly. Chu Ting also realized that after half a day of busy work, he had forgotten to cook the rice. "I'll do it now." Chu Ting quickly saved face. "I'll do it, you don't know how much rice and water to use." Lu Mengli was afraid of making another mistake, so she got up and went to the kitchen to steam the rice. The cute kids, however, had to climb up to the table one by one, but they had nowhere to put the chopsticks. In order not to let them go hungry, Chu Ting thought that they could eat vegetables instead of rice, so he waved his hand and said, "Babies, eat the vegetables first, the rice will be ready soon." Bao couldn't wait any longer and reached out to pick up the stir-fried pork. When he saw that the fat was still dripping with red oil, he looked disgusted and left it in the bowl for a long time without eating it. After seeing this, Chu Ting felt a little embarrassed, and offered Bao a piece of lean meat. "Here, you can have the fat for me, and try this one." Bao's face lit up when he saw the lean meat, and he gobbled it up in one bite. But the next second, Bao hurriedly spat it out, along with a mouthful of saliva, while repeatedly saying, "Daddy, it's salty." "How can that be?" Chu Ting said, and tried a mouthful of the fatty meat himself. It was greasy and tasted salty, making it disgusting to eat. Ugh! Shu Chou-ting also retched, but then forced it back down. He said nonchalantly, since Da Bao doesn't like it, let's eat vegetables. Come on, everyone, try the vegetables. This white stuff must be delicious. In spite of his assurances, the little ones all took up their chopsticks. But when they all swallowed with drooling mouths, they all frowned or shivered. Daddy, it's sweet. Yuck, it's disgusting. No way, I think it's delicious. In Shu Chou-ting's disheartened state, a pleasant voice suddenly entered his ears. When he looked up, he saw that Sibo had recognized his cooking skills. For a moment, Shu Chou-ting almost teared up with emotion, as his hard work had finally paid off. Sibo, you still understand me? Shu Chou-ting felt relieved. Dad, it really is delicious, said Sibo, taking another bite of the white turnip and eating it with gusto. Shu Chou-ting even began to doubt whether the other cute kids were not used to the food he cooked. It was not until Lu Mingli came out and saw it that she laughed and said, Sibo likes sweet food, so she likes this dish more. Although it was a bit of a blow, Shu Chou-ting was not discouraged. After all, for the first time cooking, being able to get recognition from one of the cute kids was still a very proud thing. Ding personally cooked for the cute baby, successfully gaining Si Bao's approval and AD rating, which is rewarded with 500 yuan in cash. Activate hidden skill, gourmet on the tongue. Although the rating is not high, there is an unexpected bonus. He immediately checked the skill description. Chapter 14, it's time to show off your real cooking skills with the Family Deluxe Instant Noodle Burger. Gourmet on the tongue, the dishes cooked by the host's hands will all become delicious dishes that are hard to resist. Looking at the annotation, Shu Chou-ying's face lit up with joy. In that case, in the future, when he cooks again, he will definitely cook incredibly delicious food. In his mind, the recipes of China's 5,000 years of culinary culture also suddenly emerged. The cooking methods of hundreds of dishes were as if they had been refined by him 1,000 times, and he knew them all by heart. Not only does he have a mastery of every step of the cooking process, but also of seasoning, knife skills, and heat control, and it seems that a kind of muscle memory has formed in his mind. Moreover, Shu Chou-ting knows that the benefits are not only reflected in cooking delicious food, but also, most importantly, in satisfying the taste buds of the cute kids, thereby earning rating rewards. This is the most important thing. In order to save face, Shu Chou-ting glanced at the food on the table and felt that it was also unbearable to look at after becoming the chef. He then said to the children, "Wait, Daddy will cook you another meal." Seeing Shu Chou-ting's unwilling appearance, Lu Mingli knew that he was also doing what was best for the children. She smiled and comforted him, Shu Chou-ting, these dishes are not inedible. They can be eaten with the rice when it's ready, so there's no need to cook again. Give me half an hour, and I'll fix it for the kids before the rice is ready. Shu Chou-ting, however, was adamant. But to Lu Mingli, Shu Chou-ting was just trying to reassure everyone. What kind of food could be cooked in half an hour? Even with Shu Chou-ting's cooking skills, it was impossible. But she didn't dampen the mood, but instead followed into the kitchen, ready to help Shu Chou-ting cook this time. On the side, she turned back to the children and said, "If you're hungry, you can have some snacks to tide you over, but not too much, do you hear? Mom, we'll wait for Dad to finish cooking before eating with you. We're not hungry. We ate all the fried chicken family bucket Dad bought earlier." Although the cute kids are only 5 years old, they are already very sensible. This is also the place that Lu Mingli is most proud of. Raising the children well is better than anything else. After entering the kitchen, Lu Mingli saw Shu Chou-ting turn around and walk out again, but with his hands empty. She wondered what he wanted. "I'll go buy some instant noodles," Shu Chou-ting said to Lu Mingli. Lu Mingli was stunned. She thought to herself, this guy usually just eats instant noodles at home, so is he trying to get the kids to eat his specialty dishes too? No wonder it only takes half an hour to cook. Shu Chou-ting, no need, your dishes are delicious too. I never thought this man would still be competing with me, Lu Mingli laughed and said. No, I have to save face in front of the kids. Shu Chou-ting guessed Lu Mingli's thoughts again and continued, the noodles I'm making this time are not ordinary. They don't just need to be soaked for a while, that's not nutritious. I've learned a way to make them that's called decent. Lu Mingli couldn't help but laugh. Watching Shu Chou-ting's back disappear at the door, Lu Mingli had no choice but to accompany the kids and say, Daddy will go make you something delicious in a while, but shouldn't we not waste the food on the table? Mom, we know that every grain of food is grown with the hard work of the farmers, so we can't let their sweat go to waste. The children always remember Lu Mingli's teachings, so they started to move their chopsticks, and no matter how bad the taste, they would eat a little bit. Lu Mingli also slightly adjusted the taste, pouring away the soup to neutralize it so that it wouldn't be too salty or too sweet. Mom, I can't eat anymore, it's really salty. Sanba's mouth was watering, and his eyes were closed. My dears, we won't eat it now, we'll put it aside. I'll make it again tomorrow. Lu Mingli knows how to manage a household with diligence and frugality, so even though these dishes have failed, she doesn't want to throw them away. Instead, she starts thinking about how to salvage them. Before long, Chu Choying also returns with 10 packs of instant noodles. As soon as he enters the house, he says to the children and Lu Mingli, now Daddy is going to start working for real. My dears, bear with me for a little while, and Daddy will have the food ready in no time. Good. Dad, keep up the good work. You've worked hard, Dad. Lu Mingli just smiled and said nothing, thinking that she would help if she could. Although Chu Choying's cooking skills were worrying, his sense of responsibility made Lu Mingli all the more touched. After entering the kitchen, Lu Mingli was going to take over Chu Choying's work and let him take a break, but he was still rejected. This time, I will give you a different taste of food, so just wait and see. Fine, then I'll wait for you, the great chef, to show off your skills and fill my belly and the bellies of the babies. Lu Mingli no longer tried to stop him, but watched from the side, asking if he needed anything like eggs or ham, and she would cut it up for him. No. Chu Choying said heroically, just wait and eat. Then Chu Choying brought the fire to a boil, then ripped open all the packages of instant noodles, and put in all 10 packages, according to the appetites of the children. At this time, Lu Mingli noticed a detail. That is, Chu Choying did not pour the broken instant noodles into the pot, but used a flat plate to collect it. Lu Mingli couldn't help but be curious, what do you do with the broken instant noodles? Of course it's used to make another dish. Chu Choying laughed, a divine way of eating that you've never seen before. After the instant noodles were soft, Chu Choying took them out and said, Mingli, bring me a big basin. Okay. Lu Mingli began to help out. After everything was loaded, Chu Choying's next move surprised Lu Mingli a bit. She saw him take the instant noodles and rinse them under the faucet, and finally squeeze the water out as much as possible. Mingli, bring a bigger bowl. Chu Choying ordered again. At this point, Lu Mingli couldn't understand what Chu Choying was doing at all. It was completely different from the simple way of making traditional instant noodles. She didn't have time to ask more questions, but instead took out the large bowl and placed it on the table. After that, she saw Chu Choying grab a handful of instant noodles and spread them on the bottom of the bowl. After spreading them out, she saw Chu Choying take 2 eggs out of the refrigerator again, as if he knew what to do. Chu Choying knocked it open with his hand and put it in the bowl. Lu Mingli smiled, you can do it, Chu Choying. You're quite skilled at cracking eggs. 10 minutes ago, Chu Choying couldn't have done this, but now it's a piece of cake. It's nothing. Chu Choying grinned, smugly saying, now is the time to truly show off my chef skills. Okay, I'll wait for your delicious food to appear. Lu Mingli chimed in, just like a good wife and mother. Chu Choying added flour and a small amount of seasoning, and then began to stir the instant noodles in the bowl. He also took out the luncheon meat from the shopping bag he had just bought, and paired it with the tomatoes he already had at home, sliced them, and arranged them on a plate. During this process, Lu Mingli also noticed Chu Choying's knife skills. Compared to the previous kind of cutting meat that looked like he was about to cut his fingers, it was much more skillful. Although they were all cut into large pieces, each slice of luncheon meat and tomato was evenly thin, indistinguishable to the naked eye, and she was instantly a little surprised. Chu Choying, your knife skills are better than mine when cutting thick slices, and each slice is so even, which really gives me a little surprise. Chu Choying was secretly pleased with himself, and this was only the beginning. There will be many more places to surprise you in the future, so watch out, I'm going to start making the first dish with instant noodles. Chu Choying reminded her. Lu Mingli instantly understood. Chu Choying had been laying the groundwork for a long time, and he had been waiting for this moment. So you mean to say that these instant noodles can be used to make several dishes? Chu Choying heated the pan, added some oil, and then poured in the well-stirred instant noodles and fried them until both sides were golden brown. Soon, the aroma of the instant noodles and eggs wafted through the air, and Lu Mingli couldn't help but salivate as she smelled it. Wow, it smells so good. What are you making, Dad? I'm suddenly so hungry. When can we eat, Dad? Mom, Dad is amazing. The kids were also suddenly attracted by the aroma of the instant noodles, and they gathered at the door, sticking their little heads out, while they could be seen with drool hanging from the corners of their mouths, exclaiming in awe. Lu Mingli wasn't quite sure what Chu Ting's final product was, so she could only let Chu Ting answer for himself. Just wait a little longer, my darlings, Daddy will be done soon. Chu Ting poured the instant noodles out of the pan and placed them on a large flat plate to cool and harden. After about a minute, Chu Ting began to cut the noodles. He cut the corners of the noodles to make them square. After that, he fried the luncheon meat in the oil left in the pan until it was slightly browned and then placed it on the noodles. It's just like making a hamburger. In fact, Chu Ting was indeed making a family version of instant noodle burgers. After arranging the luncheon meat, he added sliced tomatoes, added a layer of salad dressing, and then spread lettuce on top. Lu Mingli was a little stunned by what she saw. She never imagined that instant noodles could be made into burgers, and this was the first time she had seen it. She couldn't help but admire Chu Ting a little. Then he cut the square instant noodle burger into small pieces and arranged them on a plate. Everything was handled in an organized manner, no longer as flustered as before. It was a bit unbelievable. Lu Mingli said, Chu Ting, I've noticed that your cooking skills have also improved. Haha, didn't I tell you before that I can cook instant noodles? Chu Ting grinned and teased, after doing it for a while, I've figured out these ways of eating, which are all small achievements for me. Lu Mingli can smell the rich aroma. Chu Ying cuts the food into 8 pieces and says to Lu Mingli, you and the kids can start eating, and I'll start cooking the other ways to eat it. It's only been less than 10 minutes, and Chu Ying's control of the heat has greatly reduced the cooking time. No extra time is wasted in any step. The kids can't wait, and are waiting behind the kitchen door to feed themselves. Lu Mingli took out 7 bowls, put a piece in each one for the kids, and told them to eat first, while reminding them to be careful as it was hot. The kids seemed really hungry. After getting the instant noodle burgers, they couldn't wait to eat them, and didn't care if they were hot or not. Whoosh, 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 it's hot! Lu Bao exclaimed after taking a bite. The other cute kids were also exhaling heavily, but seeing that everyone was eating with relish, Lu Mingli couldn't help but ask curiously, how is the taste, my dears? Is it delicious? Chapter 15 Mom and Dad are drinking a toast, they're getting married. It's delicious. Mom, it smells so good, you eat it too. Dad's hamburger is so delicious, I want to eat some more. Every Menhua had an incredibly sincere smile on their face. Several of the Menghua's eyes were narrowed into crescent moons from eating. Compared to the meals Chu Ting had made before, Lu Mingli could also feel that the Menghua weren't just going through the motions. This instant noodle burger really hit the spot. While he was busy, Chu Ting smiled at Lu Mingli and said, try it. I'll try it. Lu Mingli said, and also picked up the last piece of instant noodle burger, took a small bite, and immediately the instant noodles mixed with the taste of eggs instantly blossomed in her taste buds. The fragrance of the crispy but not greasy noodles filled the air, and they were crunchy when bitten into, crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, giving the feeling of eating meat. Her eyes brightened slightly. She never imagined that Chu Ting's instant noodle burger was really something, and it could be called a delicacy. How does it taste? Satisfied your appetite? Chu Ting smiled and said. Very delicious. Lu Mingli also said without hesitation, compared to the burgers you eat outside, I like yours better. Chu Ting felt instantly gratified. He laughed heartily and said, as long as you like it, I'll cook it often from now on. This way of cooking doesn't cause inflammation, the nutrients are evenly matched, and the kids can eat it with peace of mind. Dad, you eat too. Wu Bao came up quietly and handed over the half that was left over. Who wouldn't like such a sensible child? Dad's not hungry, Wu Bao eat first, there's more in the pot. Chu Ting felt a great sense of satisfaction at this moment. However, the system's prompt tone did not come, and Chu Ting did not rush. Perhaps it was calculating the estimated cost of the entire dinner. Then, Chu Ting began to prepare again. First, he took a large basin and filled it with baking powder, then poured in the flour and salt, and added some cooking oil to knead the dough. Since the kitchen was too crowded, Lu Mingli told the young girls to go out and eat first, and then call them when they were done. As for her, she suddenly handed over the instant noodle burger that she had eaten a little of earlier, and placed it near Chu Ting's mouth and said, you eat a little too. Chu Ting glanced at Lu Mingli, but the other party blushed a little and said, I bit a little, you eat the other side. However, Chu Ting grinned and took a big bite directly at the mark where Lu Mingli had bitten, and began to taste his own handiwork. He found that the texture was incredibly soft and fluffy, and it had a unique flavor that combined the freshness of the egg with the deliciousness of the luncheon meat that had been grilled. Together with the lettuce and salad tomatoes, the entire instant noodle burger was not greasy at all, and the nutritional value of the meal was enhanced. It tastes good, Xu Qiuting also affirmed. Lu Mengli smiled and said, "Want some more? You eat it." Xu Qiuting laughed and said, "If you don't like my saliva, eat the other side, and then give me the rest." But Lu Mengli didn't say anything, but instead ate along the bite marks left by Xu Qiuting. At that moment, Xu Qiuting felt that Lu Mengli didn't seem to dislike him at all, and he felt a sense of relief in his heart. "Mengli, now I finally understand what it feels like to be at home." After mixing the dough, seal it with plastic wrap and let it ferment for a few minutes. Then start working on the other specialties again. Lu Mengli broke open the instant noodle burger and stuffed another bite into Xu Qiuting, asking, "What's it like?" "It's like this delicious food, the feeling of happiness." Xu Qiuting still knows how to describe it, making Lu Mengli beam with joy. At this moment, Xu Qiuting also laughed along, so sunny and comfortable. Lu Mengli saw Xu Qiuting start to slice the remaining pork belly, and then mince it. The movements were fluid, without the slightest sense of stagnation, and she was slightly surprised. "Xu Qiuting, be honest with me, did you just cook on purpose?" Xu Qiuting naturally understood what the other person meant. He had merely activated the ji gourmet on the tip of the tongue skill, so he pretended to be mysterious and smiled. "Guess? Your knife skills obviously seem like a different person from before." Lu Mengli exclaimed in amazement. "That's because I have a talent for cooking, and I can learn it after just one time." Xu Qiuting, however, was shamelessly narcissistic. Lu Mengli did not refute, because next, Xu Qiuting's actions once again stunned her. She saw Xu Qiuting arrange the minced meat on a plate, then crack an egg in a small bowl and use 2 chopsticks to start stuffing the minced meat into the egg yolk. This process requires attention to detail and patience. If the force is not controlled well enough and the experience is not sufficient, it is easy to cause the egg yolk to break. After handling 8 servings, Xu Qiuting mixed the egg with the instant noodles, sprinkled in the green onion, and picked up the steamer to steam it. In order to hurry, Xu Qiuting also asked Lu Mengli to help. He started to handle the risen flour again, flattened it with a rolling pin, and did a lace treatment on the edges. He then added the filling made from grated cheese bought from the convenience store, spread it over the bottom of the bowl, and added the instant noodles. He chopped the tomatoes and added the chopped cabbage, spread another layer of instant noodles, added a few slices of sausage, layered everything, and then put it in the baking dish to steam. Although Lu Mengli leads a frugal life, the kitchen is fully equipped with all kinds of utensils. It can be seen that she is also trying her best to satisfy the children when it comes to food. Lu Mengli looked a little incredulous and said, "Xu Qiuting, are you making pizza?" "Correct." Xu Qiuting laughed and said, "The family version of instant noodle pizza will definitely satisfy your stomachs. You really do change the way you cook for us." Lu Mengli suddenly understood that the children love KFC, pizza, and the like, and Xu Qiuting can even make it using instant noodles. I have to admit that he is accomplished in the culinary arts and has a more imaginative mind than I do. While waiting for the instant noodle pizza and egg steamed noodles to come out of the oven, Xu Qiuting used a large colander to fill the instant noodles, poured oil into the pan and heated it until it was 70–80% hot, then put the large colander in the pan again, instantly frying the instant noodles until they were golden brown and set, then scooped them out. After placing it on a nice plate prepared by Lu Mengli, the hemispherical instant noodles stood in the middle of it. Then Xu Qiuting cut carrots, luncheon meat and broccoli and stir-fried them in a pan, adding salt and chicken essence to taste before taking them out of the pan. He arranged the dish on a plate, put the instant noodle balls in the middle, picked up a few eggs for the children and arranged them on the plate, and used small tomatoes as an embellishment. Not only does it look good, but the taste needs no further explanation, just like the food made by a 5-star chef in a hotel. "Done, serve." Xu Qiuting clapped his hands and laughed. Before serving it to the table, Lu Mengli curiously asked, "Xu Qiuting, what's the name of this dish?" Xu Qiuting grinned and said, "Decent cake. It's made to celebrate our family eating our first meal together in a neat and tidy manner. But I also saw Xu Qiuting's cooking skills soar, which is amazing." After taking the instant noodle cake out, Xu Qiuting could hear the exclamations of the children in the kitchen. They were obviously amazed by the way the instant noodle cake was made and plated. Children are more curious than adults, so this instant noodle cake also made them applaud. Qiuting's mouth curled up into a smile as he used some of the leftover ingredients in the kitchen to make good use of them. He sliced some of the remaining pork belly, then added some 5-spice powder and salt to marinate it. After mixing it well, he poured in the light soy sauce and dark soy sauce. To make the dish a little lighter for the kids, he didn't add the chili powder, and finally used cornstarch to knead it. While waiting for the pork belly to absorb the flavor, Xiao Ting didn't stop working. He poured the instant noodle seasoning packet into the instant noodles, stirred well, and spread it out. He then arranged the thinly sliced marinated pork belly on a plate, stacking it up layer by layer like a small mountain peak. After he had finished, Lu Mingli also came in. As she watched Xu Qiuting create yet another new dish, she couldn't help but smile wryly. Xu Qiuting, is this enough food? In fact, it looks like there are many dishes, but the portions are very small. So Xu Qiuting smiled and said, as long as the children are happy, it's fine to make more. Come, help me put it in the steamer. Lu Mingli was also very neat and efficient. She rolled up her sleeves and lifted the tray with the steamer. At this time, the egg noodles in the steamer were also cooked, and they were taken out alternately. A faint fragrance came from the steamer, and Lu Mingli's appetite was aroused. Xu Qiuting, however, sprinkled a little chopped green onion on each bowl as a garnish. Finally, it was done, and he also laughed. Instant noodles with eggs served. I'll save one for you to eat. Lu Mingli looked at the 8 servings and said lightly, you've made so much, and you haven't even had a bite yourself. Do you know why I've only made 8 servings? Xu Qiuting, however, grinned and began to lay the groundwork. Lu Mingli curiously asked, why? The sweet words I had prepared long ago came in handy at this moment, because I want to eat with you. Lu Mingli was touched. You're full of bad ideas. After Lu Mingli pouted, she hurriedly covered her inner shyness and went out with a bowl of instant noodles and a raw egg. The cute kids outside, however, were already enjoying their meal. The instant noodles and cake were almost finished in no time. However, Lu Mingli noticed that 2 portions had been placed in separate bowls and had not been touched, apparently reserved for her and Xu Qiuting. Lu Mingli smiled knowingly at the children's thoughtfulness. Are you having fun eating, my dears? Very much. Daddy has also made other dishes for you. This is 1 bowl each, so you must finish it all. Lu Mingli spoke gently and cheerfully. The children also felt like they were in for a treat. After Lu Mingli had set their places for them one by one, she reminded them, eat slowly, don't burn yourself. Got it, Mom. The children waved their little spoons and beamed. Lu Mingli hadn't experienced this kind of happy atmosphere in a long time. With Xu Qiuting around, everything at home was slowly getting better, and Lu Mingli felt a wave of gratitude and warmth in her heart. After entering the kitchen again, Xu Qiuting eagerly asked, how is the instant noodle cake? We've almost finished eating it, and we've also sneaked 2 servings for us. Lu Mingli said with a faint smile on her face. That's good, it seems that my cooking skills have been recognized by the kids, haha. Xu Qiuting laughed, while beginning to dispose of the kitchen trash and dishes. Lu Mingli also helped with the cleanup. She also poured instant noodles and poured eggs into her mouth, feeding Xu Qiuting, who was busy with both hands. It tasted good, not at all greasy, and the more she ate, the more addicted she became. Xu Qiuting also let Lu Mingli take a few bites, and fortunately, the other party did not mind the saliva and ate with a smile. She was now finally sure of Xu Qiuting's cooking skills, and the taste could match that of a star chef. After about 5 minutes, Xu Qiuting saw that the instant noodles in the steamer were almost done, so he personally put on the steamer gloves and took out the instant noodles with meat. He then poured on some hot oil, which immediately made a sizzling sound. In an instant, the smell of the steamed pork filled the entire kitchen, and it was so good that you could smell it forever. Xu Qiuting personally served the steamed pork on a tray, which was still steaming. Seeing that the children were still eating instant noodles with eggs poured into them, he said with a smile, look, my dears, what else have I made for you? Wow, it's meat. Instant noodles and meat. It smells so good. Daddy, you and Mummy come and eat too. The children cheered with excitement, but Xu Qiuting laughed and said, there's one last dish. Daddy will serve it now, and then we'll all eat together, okay? Great. The children shouted louder than anyone else, deafening, but it made Xu Qiuting feel so good. The final pizza was also taking shape in the oven, so Xu Qiuting continued to serve it. Lu Mingli helped out, and looking at the brightly colored pizza, which was no worse than the pizza made specially in the store, she couldn't help but admire Xu Qiuting. We're going out to dinner with the kids, and I'll clean up after we're done eating. Xu Qiuting laughed. Okay, let's eat first. Lu Mingli looked at the rice, which was just steamed, and could only smile helplessly, but it looks like this rice will have to wait until tomorrow. Xu Qiuting laughed, just leave it, I'll cook it tomorrow, and make you some fancy fried rice. Lu Mingli smiled slightly and said, okay, my chef. Ha. Xu Qiuting felt a sense of accomplishment at this moment. After the food was served, the 9 members of the family, including the 7 adorable children, gathered together. Chu Cho Ting, who had bought drinks, raised his glass and said, "My dears, before we eat, let's toast our dear mother, shall we?" "Yes." The adorable children were also full of smiles, holding their fruit drinks and raising their glasses. Then, under Chu Cho Ting's leadership, they shouted to Lu Mengli, "Mom, you've worked hard." Lu Mengli could hold back no longer and burst into tears. All the grievances she had felt before, and all the hardships she had endured, vanished at that moment. "My dear children, thank you, because of you, I am happy." Lu Mengli also spoke from the bottom of her heart, and looked at Chu Cho Ting and said, "Here, let's also toast to Dad, shall we?" The adorable children followed suit, and then, moved by Lu Mengli's words, they all shouted, "Dad, you've worked hard too. Dad is not tired, and you make me feel very happy." Chu Cho Ting's eyes were a little moist as he looked at these lively and adorable children, and a sense of happiness welled up in his heart. Afterwards, Chu Cho Ting looked at Lu Mengli and laughed, "Let's also have a toast and a cup handling ceremony." Lu Mengli became embarrassed, however, and didn't expect it to be so abrupt. Sanba, who often watched TV, immediately started a commotion. "Mom and Dad are having a cup handling ceremony, they're getting married." Mom and Dad bow to the heavens and the earth. Second, bow to the elders. Send them to the bridal chamber. These kids really know everything. Chu Cho Ting looked at Lu Mengli in surprise and said, "Did you teach them that?" "No." Lu Mengli's face flushed and she said, "I don't know where I learned it." But Chu Cho Ting didn't mind, and continued, "Since the kids have said it, shall we do it?" At this point, Lu Mengli had already approved of Chu Cho Ting. So, without any reservations, she held out her hand and entwined it with Chu Cho Ting's. The two looked at each other again, and then drank from the straws. The children were also applauding and jumping around happily, with a joyous look on everyone's face. Oh, Mommy and Daddy are getting married." But this was just a formality. But in the simple world of children, perhaps this was a wedding, a very romantic and happy wedding. When the two of them let go, Chu Cho Ting whispered again, "In the future, I will definitely give you a grand enough wedding, I promise." Lu Mengli's body trembled, and tears welled up in her eyes again. Although she didn't answer, Chu Cho Ting knew that if he gave her enough time, Lu Mengli would always say yes. The family began to take their seats one after the other. Chu Cho Ting then called out to the Menghua kids, "Dinner's ready. Try some of Dad's other dishes." The Menghua kids couldn't wait any longer and started to dig in with their chopsticks. Some of the Menghua kids couldn't get the food to their mouths, so Chu Cho Ting and Lu Mengli helped them out by giving each of them a little bit. As the time passed, Chu Cho Ting watched the Menghua kids chatting and laughing, and felt an infinite sense of satisfaction. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully preparing a decent dish for the cute kids, gaining their recognition, receiving an S-level rating, and being rewarded 1 million yuan in cash. Doubling is in progress. Ding! Doubling has succeeded, and you have received double the cash reward, which has been issued to your account. Ding! Congratulations to the host for becoming the head of the family, your status has risen, and your temperament and charm have improved. Chapter 16 Folding the laundry for the mother of his children, the whole family moved. Chu Cho Ting never expected that this display of cooking skills would be unanimously praised by the cute kids, and after being judged by the system, he received an S-level rating. Looking at the entire 1 million yuan cash reward, Chu Cho Ting's eyes went straight. After living for so long, this was the first time he had seen so much money in his account. Although it was not enough to buy a decent house for the time being, at least the daily lives of the family of 9 and the living expenses of the cute kids would not need to be worried about. It's just a pity that the doubling trigger multiplier is still 1, otherwise it would be millions. But having a million is already pretty good. Chu Cho Ting is not greedy, or rather, he is mentally prepared to go with the flow. Seeing Chu Cho Ting in a daze, Lu Mengli did not forget to ask, "What's wrong?" After coming back to his senses, Chu Cho Ting smiled at the treasure girl in front of him and said, "Nothing, I'm just feeling very emotional." I never thought that Chu Cho Ting would also have a day when his dreams come true. Lu Mengli has always had a grudge in her heart. Of course it wasn't directed at Chu Cho Ting, but she felt that after confessing to him, he had really done too much for her and the Menghua kids in the past 2 days. He had settled the hospital fees for San Bao, making her lively and active again, and also helped her solve the crisis of overdue loans, indirectly helping the children's future prospects, which would not be delayed because of her. He also made a table full of delicious meals, and as she watched the Menghua kids smile with joy as they ate, Lu Mengli picked up her drink again and said, "Dad, thank you." This was not the first time that Lu Mengli had said so. However, Chu Cho Ting could feel that every time Lu Mengli said thank you, it was from the bottom of her heart. He also raised his drink, clinked glasses with the other person, and took a sip. This scene fell into the eyes of the cute children, especially Er Bao, who actually looked like he was learning. San Bao, let's do the same. Xu Qiuting and Lu Mengli were at a loss for words. This little brat was still young but already so full of mischief. When the meal gradually came to an end, the children had all had enough to eat. Their little tummies were all round and plump. As they were preparing to clear away the table, the eldest child ran out of the bathroom and said, "Mom, Dad, the toilet is blocked again." Lu Mengli hurriedly put down the chopsticks in her hands and said, "I'll go and have a look." Looking at Xu Qiuting's tall and majestic figure, Lu Mengli did not offer to yield, saying, "Okay, there is a problem with the toilet drain, it often gets blocked. I have mentioned it to the landlord several times, but it has not been resolved. I will fix it." Xu Qiuting laughed. Then he took the aggrieved De Bao by the hand and walked into the toilet, saying, "Daddy will fix it." De Bao, wait a moment. "Daddy, hurry up, I can't hold it in anymore," De Bao said anxiously. "Right away." Xu Qiuting looked and saw that black water was constantly bubbling up from the toilet, and the smell was extremely unpleasant. He frowned slightly and said, "Baby, you go out first, I'll let you know when I'm done." "Dad, I'll get you some gloves," said De Bao, and went over to the side to hand over the spare cleaning gloves that Lu Mengli had prepared. He smiled knowingly and said, "Thanks, De Bao, go out quickly, it stinks here." "Okay." De Bao nodded obediently, ran to the door, and then peeked in with the other cute kids. Even though the unpleasant smell made them cover their noses and mouths, they still wanted to watch Xu Qiuting display his awesome power. Xu Qiuting looked around, but he didn't find anything handy to clean the toilet, and the black water was still coming out, almost overflowing the plane. Lu Mengli seemed to be uneasy about Xu Qiuting, so after putting away the dishes and putting them in the kitchen, she followed him to the toilet. She could smell the fishy smell from afar, frowned, looked at the helpless Xu Qiuting, and asked, "What's the matter? Do you need my help? Has this happened before?" This was the first time Xu Qiuting had encountered such a difficult problem. But Lu Mengli shook her head and said, "It hasn't happened before. It just gets blocked occasionally, and I can get it unblocked by poking it with a toilet plunger a few times. It's not working." Xu Qiuting shook his head and said, "I guess you need a special unblocking tool. What should we do? It's so late and there's nothing." Lu Mengli looked at the stench, which even filled the hall. If it wasn't resolved, there was no way they could sleep at night, she said anxiously. "Dad, I can't hold it in anymore, oh." De Bao began to jump around a lot, his whole face about to burst. In desperation, Xu Qiuting said to Lu Mengli, "Is there a public toilet nearby? Take De Bao to the toilet first, I'll take care of this." "Okay." Lu Mengli also looked at Bao Bao, who was so anxious that she could hardly stand it, and hurriedly led her away. As for the other cute babies, they could no longer stand the stench and all ran away. But soon, the little ones put on their masks again and said to Xu Qiuting with a smile, "Daddy, it stinks, you wear it too." Xu Qiuting smiled slightly, petting Wu Bao, who had bravely stepped into the toilet and handed him the mask, and thanked her by petting her head. "Thank you, Wu Bao, you are really Daddy's little cotton padded jacket." Hee, you're welcome, Dad. This is what I should do," Wu Bao said very obediently. "Now get out quickly, Dad will think of something." Xu Qiuting saw that the black water had covered the squat position and was about to spread to his feet, so he quickly picked up Wu Bao and walked outside. Then he used the toilet plunger to forcefully unblock it, but this had no effect at all and almost made him stink. With no choice, Xu Qiuting had to leave the toilet, then close the door and call Lu Mengli. After the other party answered, they asked, "Hey, is the toilet fixed?" "No." Xu Qiuting looked at a few cute kids, all running out of the house and breathing in the fresh air. He smiled helplessly and said, "I don't think I can sleep at home tonight. Why don't you call the landlord and ask him to come over and take a look? That's about it," Lu Mengli said, and hung up the phone, calling the landlord. Xu Qiuting followed her out of the house and breathed in the fresh air outside, feeling much more comfortable in his lungs. After a while, Lu Mengli called, but her words revealed her helplessness. "He is out of town and can't come back, so he asked me to find a solution myself. If that doesn't work, he said to find the property management or a plumber to come and take a look. It's past the point now where the property management has already closed for the day." Xu Qiuting knows that living under someone else's roof means there are a lot of inconveniences, and you have to solve problems on your own. After thinking about it, Xu Qiuting also took this opportunity to say to Lu Mengli, "Why don't you go to my house to stay tonight, otherwise the children definitely won't be able to sleep because of the toilet problem." Lu Mingli thought about it and couldn't think of any other good solutions, so she could only agree. Is that convenient? Look what you said. Chu Ting laughed helplessly and said, I'm the only one at home, and the children and you are not strangers, so what's inconvenient about it? That's fine. Lu Mingli immediately agreed, and I'll wait for Dabao to finish going to the bathroom and then go back. You guys wait for me at home, and we'll clean up together then. Just before hanging up the phone, Chu Ting decided, Mingli, we can't live in this basement anymore, so move in with me. I'll also look for new housing online now and make sure where the kids go to school. Whatever you say. Lu Mingli surprisingly did not refuse, and then added, I still have 15,000 yuan in my phone, which I will transfer to you now. In a few days, my salary will be paid as well, and I will give it to you together. After a pause, Lu Mingli added, if it's not enough, you have to tell me, and I will think of another way. Chu Ting, however, happily smiled and said, keep your money and your salary. I have plenty of money. It's not a problem if we keep renting. In a while, let's go look at houses again, settle down early, and it will be convenient for taking care of the baby. Lu Mingli was taken aback for a moment and said, honey, there's no rush to buy a house, and we've already spent too much of your money. When I have money, I can contribute a little, and then we can consider buying a house, okay? Silly girl, don't think so much. Our priority is our child. Chu Ting knew what Lu Mingli was thinking and continued, only if we have a stable home can we live a good life. Are you right? Then you have to promise me not to borrow money or take out a loan. Let's do things according to our abilities. I don't want you to follow in my footsteps. It's not fair to you. Lu Mingli was concerned. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Chu Ting smiled slightly, okay, you stay with Dabao for now, I'll go with the kids to quickly tidy up the house, and bring whatever we need tonight. We'll deal with the rest tomorrow. Okay, I'll come back as soon as I can to help you. Lu Mingli nodded in agreement. After hanging up the phone, Chu Ting looked at the kids, who were already playing around, carefree and enviable. He clapped his hands and called out to the kids, babies, let's move tonight and go live with Daddy, okay? The children were overjoyed, yes, Daddy. We have a new home. Daddy, when Mum comes back, can we go together? Some of the children thought that Chu Ting wanted to take them away secretly, so they couldn't help squatting down, pinching Sanbao's little face and laughing, of course, but before Mum comes back, let's use our little hands to tidy up the house a bit, shall we? Yes. The children answered cheerfully. Then, one by one, they ran back into the smelly house. Chu Ying followed them in and told them, my dears, you just pack up the things you need to study, your favorite toys, and whatever else you want to bring, and put it all in your school bags. The cute kids were very obedient and got to work. They put their homework books, school supplies, and favorite things into their backpacks, and anything they wanted to buy, they held in their hands. As for Chu Ting, he walked into Lu Mingli's room, looked at the neatly packed closet, thought about it, pulled out the safe and simply packed some change of clothes for them. After Lu Mingli returned, she saw the cute kids carrying bags of luggage, but she didn't see Chu Ting's figure, so she couldn't help but ask curiously, baby, where's Daddy? Dad is in the room, packing Mommy's clothes. The children replied. Oh, okay, have the children packed everything? Lu Mingli noticed that the smell in the house was getting stronger and stronger, and it was not a solution for the children to stay there all the time, so she said again, after you've packed, wait for Mommy and Daddy at the door first. They all nodded, and then walked out of the door in an orderly manner one after the other. Lu Mingli, however, walked into the house and found Chu Ying folding her black underwear in his hands. Chapter 17 The Seven stunned the driver in the car, your wife's jeans are really strong. Lu Mingli blushed instantly and hurriedly said, Chu Ting, I'll pack these clothes. After stuffing the black underwear into the suitcase, Chu Ting smiled and said, it's already packed, including your toiletries. Thank you. Lu Mingli hurriedly closed the suitcase. Because she noticed that Chu Ting had also folded his own underwear and placed it in the middle compartment. Chu Ting noticed that the other parties seemed to be shy, but he said with interest, Lu Mingli, why are you so red? Is it? Lu Mingli looked a little guilty and said, I guess it's because I just ran back, and it's a little hot. As for whether it is or not, everyone knows. Chu Ting lifted the suitcase, which still had some weight, and said, check again to see if there are any items you need tonight. If not, we'll send the children there first, and I'll come back with you in the morning to pack. After checking, Lu Mingli realized that she didn't have much with her, basically just the children's things, so she shook her head and said, that's about it, we'll pack tomorrow. At this point, the smell of the toilet came into the room, and she was a little depressed, saying, "It's late, let the children go to sleep first." Okay. Chu Chou-ting left the room with his suitcase, followed by Lu Mengli, who also had a few bags in her hands. At this time, Chu Chou-ting added, "I've noticed that you don't have much makeup, so it's time I bought you some." Lu Mengli didn't expect Chu Chou-ting to have observed so closely. Apart from daily sun protection and skincare, she basically didn't use makeup very much. After all, in the past, she had to spend every penny wisely, and her children's clothing, food, housing, and transportation were more important than anything else. She was also used to a simple life, so she shook her head at Chu Chou-ting and said, "No, I don't wear much makeup either." Although Lu Mengli went without makeup every day, she was more delicate and beautiful than some girls who wore makeup. Her skin was very tender, and she didn't know how she took care of it. She didn't look like she had given birth and become a mother at all. Chu Chou-ting, however, just smiled and said nothing, and when he arrived at the door, the cute kids had been waiting for a long time. They were also carrying their own belongings in their hands, and then they watched Chu Chou-ting and the other person walk out. They all looked like they were going on vacation, with smiles on their faces, saying, "Mom and Dad, can we go to our new home yet?" Although Chu Chou-ting's rental house was not big, it had 2 bedrooms and a living room. He had once wanted to be a news anchor, so one room was dedicated to work, and the other room was for rest. As for the living room, it was also about 30 to 40 square meters, connected to the kitchen and next to the bathroom, adding up to 90 square meters. The rent of 1,500 yuan a month is reasonable, and Chu Chou-ying has lived here for several years. The main reason is that the location is relatively good. Outside the residential area, there are roads in all directions, with a hotel and snack street above and a shopping plaza and supermarket below. It is also suitable for taking a walk with the children after dinner at night, strolling around for a few laps, and buying trinkets. Originally, Chu Chou-ying had planned to move to a different place after the new year, but he never expected to suddenly have 7 children. He felt that there was an arrangement in the universe. Due to the large number of people and the luggage, they had to take 2 cars. Chu Chou-ting and Lu Mengli each took a car and arrived together within 10 seconds of each other. He didn't leave immediately, but asked the driver to wait for a few minutes. Since the fare was calculated by the hour, the driver was happy to wait. After Lu Mengli's car arrived, Chu Chou-ting helped get the 3 children into the car first, then put the luggage in the trunk and let Lu Mengli go first. He then got into the other car and told the driver, "Driver, we can go now." The driver was a little surprised to see 4 children in the back seat, and 7 in total, all looking exactly the same. Then he saw that they were all sitting quietly and obediently, without making a fuss, so he smiled slightly and said, "Handsome guy, this is the first time I've seen so many children who all look exactly the same. It's a bit." Chu Chou-ting smiled and said, "The mother of the children is capable." "Are they all your children?" The driver glanced in the rearview mirror again. The innocent faces of the cute children were full of curiosity as they looked out the window. He couldn't help but ask. "Well." Chu Chou-ting couldn't help but turn his head and look at the 7 cute children. A proud smile crossed his face as he said, "They're all my treasures." "Dad, we're all your little cotton padded jackets, hee hee." Wu Bao laughed in a childish voice as he sat in the car. "Ha, your kids are so funny, unlike mine, who just know how to make trouble." The driver couldn't help but feel emotional. Chu Chou-ting also beamed, "Yes, they are all very well behaved and sensible, and that's what I'm most proud of. I have to admit, your wife and your genes are very strong, having multiple births is really rare." The driver kept shaking his head in shock. Ding dong. The phone suddenly rang with a message alert, and Chu Chou-ting picked it up to see that it was from Lu Mengli. "Chu Chou-ting, was your driver shocked?" He knew what Lu Mengli was referring to, so he quickly replied, "It seems we've both encountered the same situation. I was just talking about you to the driver, saying that you're very great." Then, he replied to the driver, saying that, in fact, it was all the mother's credit. 10 minutes later. After both taxis arrived at the community, the young children also got off the car one after the other. Their cheerful voices could be heard. "We're at our new home. Dad, where are Wu Bao and the others? Mom, are we going to live with Dad forever?" The young children cheered, and Lu Mengli also gave a positive reply, "Yes, we'll stay with Dad from now on and never go anywhere." At the thought of her basement, which had never seen the light of day, and which would now finally be free from its misery, Lu Mengli was overcome with emotion. Everything that had happened over the past 2 days felt like an incredible dream. Instead of things going from bad to worse, they had instead gotten better and better, and she couldn't help but feel extremely grateful. She looked around at the scene, and saw that Chu Chou-ting's car had also pulled up and stopped. Chu Chou Ting appeared first, then opened the car door for the little girls, and carried them down one by one. The cute kids waved politely to the driver and shouted in unison, "Bye, Uncle." The driver was so happy that he waved goodbye too, and then as soon as they drove a little way, he immediately sent a voice message to his wife, telling her about the interesting thing that happened when he was driving passengers home tonight. "Honey, you'll never believe it, the passengers I just drove were a family of 7 triplets, all very cute daughters, it's unbelievable." Then there was Chu Chioting. After they gathered at the entrance to the community, Chu Chioting checked their luggage again to make sure they hadn't forgotten anything, and then he said with a smile, "Let's go to Daddy's house." Immediately, a group of people rushed in. The security guard at the booth looked at the 7 cute babies and thought he was seeing a ghost. He rubbed his eyes and realized that it was Chu Chioting, a resident of the community, who was with a woman and children. He couldn't help but walk out and say, "Young man, who are they?" "My children and my wife." Chu Chou Ting paused for a moment, and finally looked at Lu Mingli before directly confessing to the security guard. "Hello, Grandpa." The security guard was almost in his 50s, and when he saw the 7 cute babies smiling at him, he had never received such treatment before. Instantly, his heart was melted. "Hello, everyone, hee hee. Uncle, I'll take the kids home first." Chu Chou Ting greeted the other man and then took the hand of one of the cute kids and walked up the slope. Lu Mingli couldn't help but say to Chu Chou Ting, who was standing next to her, "I'm not your wife yet." Outsiders may not think so. Chu Chou Ting took advantage of the situation and said, "Besides, even if I'm not, you can't argue with me on the kids' behalf, can you?" That's the truth. Lu Mingli was speechless. Instead, the several cute children were holding hands, looking around, as if they were full of curiosity about their unfamiliar surroundings. After a few minutes, they arrived at the building where Chu Chou Ting lived. Chu Chou Ting suddenly asked curiously, "Lu Mingli, how did you find me the other day?" This question had been puzzling Chu Chou Ting for 2 days, and now he finally had the chance to ask. Lu Mingli suddenly felt a pang of anxiety in her heart, and then she let out a sigh of relief. "Actually, I didn't expect such a coincidence either. Last month, I came home from work and ran into you on the way, so I followed you all the way to your community and found that you were still quite close to where I live. But at that time, I hadn't thought about what kind of mood I would face you." Having said that, she glanced at the Manghua beside her, and a smile suddenly appeared on her face. She said, "If it weren't for Sanba's fever, and I was worried that something had happened to her, then maybe you and I wouldn't have been able to meet again." Chu Chou Ting smiled bitterly, "I find that you are really stubborn, and maybe you still have resentment towards me." "No." Lu Mingli denied it in one breath, and then said very seriously, "From beginning to end, I have never blamed you, even when I got pregnant unexpectedly. At the moment I decided to give birth to them, I didn't blame anyone." Chu Chou Ting believed that Lu Mingli wasn't just trying to comfort herself, but he was still full of guilt. Lu Mingli was, after all, the school flower of Jiaotong University, but she met an irresponsible man like him. If he hadn't drunkenly messed around with her, perhaps Lu Mingli's life would be incredibly brilliant now. After all, Jiaotong University is a double first-class school with an unlimited future, but she dropped out of school because of him, wasting her life for nothing. "I'm sorry." Chu Chouying also said sorry to Lu Mingli after a lapse of 6 years. But Lu Mingli smiled happily and said, "It's all in the past, what's there to be sorry about? Besides, the kids have all grown up now, and thanks to you, you saved Sanba's life and did so much for me. I'm actually very grateful. So, let's not talk about the past, and look forward to the future." Chu Chou Ting gathered his thoughts and said, "I believe that our future will get better and better." Seeing Chu Chou Ting's spirited appearance, Lu Mingli also silently affirmed in her heart. The group finally arrived at their place to stay. Chu Chou Ting took out the key and opened the door amidst the impatience of the children. Then, a group of children rushed in. When they saw the simple new home, they didn't mind, but instead, they stared with wide eyes and happily danced around. "Wow, Dad's home is so big." Compared to the 60 square meters in the basement, where the children slept together every day and either played or romped around in the tiny living room, Chu Chouying's rented house was indeed much more spacious. However, for a family of 9, it was still a bit small. As he watched them in jubilation, Chu Chouying took the luggage in Lu Mingli's hands and placed it on the nearest table. He told her, "For the time being, you'll have to make do with living here. After a while, when the children have a place to go to school, we can then think about a new home. There's no rush. I think it's pretty good just the way it is." Lu Mingli smiled wanly. Chu Chou Ting also did not mention anything that had not yet happened. The most urgent task was to arrange a place for the children to sleep. He had already thought about it before coming here. There were beds in the 2 rooms, so he could let the children and Lu Mengli sleep there, and he could rest on the sofa in the hall. Tomorrow, he would go to the furniture store to buy new beds and place them in one of the bedrooms for the 7 children to sleep in. After settling in, it was already past 1 a.m. The children were divided into 2 groups, with 3 of them sleeping together with Lu Mengli and the other 4 in the other room. Although Lu Mengli felt bad about it, after hearing Chu Qiuying's plan, she was only doing this for a day or 2, so she gladly accepted. After the children fell asleep, Chu Qiuying lay on the sofa in the hall, but he couldn't sleep at night. The events of the past 2 days continued to reverberate in his mind, and he felt that it was all too unrealistic. So, he got up from the sofa, took another beer from the fridge, and went out onto the balcony to enjoy the breeze and drink. Knock, knock, knock. Suddenly, a light footfall sounded. Chapter 18. The 7 cute kids had very different personalities, and they all had a rich father. Chu Qiuting turned his head and saw Lu Mengli walking over, wearing pajamas, her long hair falling over her face pure and pretty. He smiled slightly and said, "Hello, you couldn't sleep either? Not used to sleeping?" Lu Mengli came over to Chu Qiuting and said, "Not really, I just had too many thoughts in my head." "Tell me about it." Chu Qiuting turned around, hands behind his back next to the railing, looking directly at the treasure girl in front of him and said, "Maybe I can help you with that. I have to go to work tomorrow morning." Lu Mengli didn't hide it either. "I've taken a few days off work because of the Sanbao incident, and the supervisor has been nagging me. I think that with you here, it shouldn't be too much of a problem for you to take care of the kids. But you also have your work, so I'm thinking about what to do." Before Lu Mengli could finish, Chu Qiuting grinned and said, "What's there to worry about? You go to work, and I'll take care of the kids." Lu Mengli looked at Chu Qiuting with incredulity and said, "What about your work?" "I work from home, so it won't be a problem." Chu Qiuting thought for a moment and said, "You probably don't know that over the years, I have worked as a game host, a novel writer, and I have also co-founded an online literature studio with others. It is doing quite well, so don't worry about it affecting me." "Really?" Lu Mengli doesn't know much about this industry, but she also knows that in recent years, there have been a lot of people working as anchors and writing novels. As for the specific situation, she hasn't studied it, so don't lie to me. "Why would I lie to you?" Chu Qiuting laughed and said, "Leave the family matters to me. If I get too busy, I'll give you a call." "Okay, that's all for now." Lu Mengli saw that Chu Qiuting wasn't joking, so she let out a small sigh of relief, and then brought up another important matter. "Chu Qiuting, have you thought about which school you want to send the baby to?" Chu Qiuting took out his phone and enlarged the kindergarten information he had taken a screenshot of for Lu Mengli to see, while explaining, "There are a total of 6 or 7 kindergartens in the surrounding area, the closest one is a few kilometers away, and the farther one is almost 20 kilometers away. The others are in other districts, so take a look." Lu Mengli took the phone and looked at it, checking it against the kindergarten information she had previously looked up online. She glanced at it and said, "At present, the Mickey Kindergarten should have a relatively good reputation according to online reviews, but the monthly childcare and education fees and food expenses add up to 1,080 yuan, and the school is attended for almost 9 months a year, so the tuition fees add up to about 9,720 yuan, which is equivalent to 10,000 yuan in spending. For our 7 children, this comes to just over 70,000 yuan, not counting other expenses. This is the minimum, and with my current ability, I can barely afford it, but I can't maintain my daily life. Then let's choose Mickey Kindergarten, I'll contact them tomorrow." Chu Qiuting had also done his homework before meeting Lu Mengli. After analysis, he decided on the spot, "You just go to work with peace of mind, and I'll contact you whenever I have news." "Chu Qiuting, don't try to be brave with me, do you hear me?" Lu Mengli said very seriously, "If you have any difficulties, you must tell me. By the way, you have to take back the 15,000 yuan." Seeing that Lu Mengli was still worried about the money, Chu Qiuting had no choice but to take the phone and show her the balance of more than 300,000 yuan that he had deliberately saved in WeChat. When Lu Mengli saw that Chu Qiuting's WeChat deposit had more than 300,000 yuan, she was instantly dumbfounded. She didn't realize that Chu Qiuting really had money, and that it was more than enough to pay for the tuition fees of the cute kids. For a moment, her emotions were mixed, and she smiled wryly and said, "Chu Qiuting, I didn't realize that the cute kids also have a rich father." "That's right." Chu Qiuting smiled slightly again and said, "This is just the money in WeChat, I also have it in my bank card." Lu Mengli couldn't help but become curious. "Chu Qiuting, you said you're not bad looking and you're rich, so why don't you have a girlfriend?" When she said this, she felt inexplicably nervous, but she was also curious about how Chu Qiuting would reply. Staring into Lu Mingli's eyes, Chu Chou-ting said with no trace of guilt, "If I said that for all these years I've been living alone, would you believe me?" Suddenly, Lu Mingli's heart was touched. However, she somewhat avoided Chu Chou-ting's sincere eyes, and then also came to the edge of the guardrail, looking up at the starry sky. "Why? Don't you want to have a partner to live with?" Chu Chou-ting looked at the other person wearing a loose one-piece pajama, but was able to reveal her exquisite figure, and even vaguely, when she swung her legs, her perky buttocks were still inviting. He didn't get lost in the sight, but instead set his gaze on the other person's profile, and then laughed. "I actually considered it, but in the end I decided to save money to buy a house first, and then consider the things of falling in love and getting married." Of course, this was a lie to Lu Mingli. After all, before the system appeared, he could barely pay for medical expenses, and he lived a frugal life, so where would he find the heart to fall in love? That would be a thankless task, and Chu Chou-ting would not do it. After saying that, Chu Chou-ting also asked the same question, "So what about you, have you spent all these years alone?" At this time, after temporarily solving the problem of Manghua going to school, Lu Mingli's mood had also improved a lot, and she also had time to chat with Chu Chou-ying alone. With a quiet smile on her face, her arms swung back and forth as if doing push-ups, she said, "Yes, I brought the 7 of them with me alone, moving from place to place, and finally settling in Tianhe community last year, until I met you." Chu Chou-ying suddenly thought of something and asked, "So do your parents know about this?" Lu Mingli's hand suddenly stopped, and her body stopped swaying. Then, after this daze lasted for several seconds, she suddenly said frankly, "Yes, but I didn't ask them to help take care of them." Seeing Lu Mingli speak so lightly, Chu Chou-ting felt that it was not that simple. She had difficulty asking for help from her parents, rather than choosing to let her parents help, so it can be imagined that Lu Mingli's withdrawal from school and pregnancy directly destroyed her future. As parents, they must be very disappointed. Moreover, after spending the past 2 days with Lu Mingli, I haven't seen her parents make a phone call or video call to show their concern. It's not hard to guess that she must have had a conflict with her parents. However, since the other person didn't want to talk about it, Chu Chou-ting would not pursue the matter. Instead, he changed the subject and said, "Oh, by the way, have you picked out names for the kids yet? I've only been able to tell them apart by their bracelets these past few days, and I haven't had a chance to ask about that yet." Lu Mingli suddenly smiled again, and a breeze blew, moving her long hair. A few strands of hair floated lightly across her face, which she brushed away with her hand before continuing, "Yes, do you want to know?" "Of course." Chu Chou-ting said curiously, "What are their names?" "They all have the character and in their names, which means peace." Lu Mingli glanced at Chu Chou-ting and continued, "Because I'm not sure if you'll exist in the future, they all take my surname." "Tell me, I'll write it down," Chu Chou-ting said, and took out his phone, ready to take notes. Lu Mingli gave a faint smile and said, "Then remember well, the first child is called Luan and I." Chu Chou-ting quickly typed it in, while also asking for the correct Chinese pronunciation to avoid misspelling homophones. "Second treasure is called Luanren. Third treasure is called Luana. Fourth treasure is called Luanli. Fifth treasure is called Luanxin. Sixth treasure is called Luanya. Seventh treasure is called Luanjing." After jotting it all down, Chu Chou-ying asked about the other person's character, and even discussed seventh treasure Luanjing. "I find that seventh treasure has a timid and introverted personality. Was that the case when she was a child?" When it came to Qibao, Lu Mingli was lost in her memories, her eyes filled with a touch of sadness and guilt as she said, "Chen was very optimistic and mischievous, but when she was 3 years old, she was almost abducted by human traffickers. Fortunately, she was rescued by a kind person." Chu Chou-ying never imagined that such a dangerous thing would happen to such a cute baby. Lu Mingli continued, "Since then, Xian has become quiet and withdrawn, afraid of meeting strangers and even afraid to initiate communication with others. Except for me and the other children, she hides by our sides whenever we go outside, for fear of running into bad guys and getting taken away again. So far, I have sought help from several psychologists, but I have not been able to cure her. Then I thought, since Quiet will be with her sisters anyway, I can only slowly help her at home on my own." Having said that, Lu Mingli suddenly looked at Chu Chou-ting and smiled, "You may not know, but during the time you spent with them today, I noticed that Quiet's situation has improved a little. I saw a sense of trust in her eyes towards you, and she no longer hid away like she did when she interacted with other people." Chu Chou-ting's face also showed a trace of a smile, although it was more of a wry smile. He said, "In fact, when Quiet first saw me, she was also afraid and resisted, but I used an interactive approach, coupled with the lure of toys, to slowly make her let down her guard." Lu Mingli had never tried this method before. And of course, she had never had the chance to try it. After all, only Chu Choying had the opportunity to get in such close contact with Qibao, and she never expected it to actually work. Chang'an is actually a very obedient child. You will see as you get to know her better. Lu Mengli smiled again. Although she rarely speaks, she often helps me with the housework. Chu Choying did have some understanding of this. He already understood what had happened to Qibao, and would pay a little more attention in the future. Then he glanced at his phone again, remembered Wu Bao's name, and said, "The other one is on Xin. Thanks to her assistance, my relationship with Quiet has improved. And she seems more like an older sister than the eldest. You noticed that too?" Lu Mengli secretly praised Chu Choying's careful observation, and then patiently explained again, although she was born fifth, she was only half an hour apart from the eldest. Compared to the eldest, the fifth child is more stable. So when I'm not at home, the fifth child takes care of the girls, does my laundry, makes sure they do their homework, cleans up after them, and waits patiently for me to get home. Chu Ting nodded in approval. Afterwards, Lu Mengli described the personalities of the other cute children, each with their own unique characteristics. Chapter 19 Whose child is it? The 7 cute kids confused the kindergarten teacher. Second treasure Anrun is more mischievous, while third treasure Anna is still playful and interested in everything. Fourth treasure Onli is a bit more obedient, knows how to take care of others, and likes to help. As for sixth treasure, she is the one Lu Mengli is most at ease with. She likes to read and is also very good at learning, so those kids are also partly thanks to Anya in terms of learning. Moreover, she is full of imagination and is also able to take the initiative to create talents. However, I will not interfere with her future choices, and everything still depends on her own interests and hobbies. After Chu Ting had jotted down their personalities one by one, he discovered that each of the sprouting babies had a distinctive and very different personality. Children with good academic performance are generally liked by their parents. However, after looking at Lu Mengli's analysis of the personality of each child, she did not favor any one of them individually. Chu Ting laughed and said, "So what type are you?" "Me?" Lu Mengli had never thought about this question before, and after glancing at Chu Ting, as if she had found some kind of mutual understanding, she said, "You want to know whose personalities the children have, right?" "Haha, of the 7 children, there is always 1 or 2 whose personalities are like ours." Chu Ting laughed heartily. Lu Mengli, however, asked in return, "Then you tell me first, which of the children take after you?" Chu Ting stroked his chin and said, "If I had to choose, I would say that the eldest and second eldest children take after me. After all, when I was young, I was also very active, climbing high and low, often getting into trouble and getting beaten up a lot." He laughed at himself while continuing, "I guess the 4th and 6th children take after you." However, Lu Mengli shook her head and said, "Actually, I feel that San Bao and Qi Bao are more like me." This answer was a bit unexpected. Chu Ting looked at Lu Mengli again, and when he saw her laughing, he asked, "What's wrong? You really can't tell? Are you socially awkward?" Chu Ting said in surprise. Lu Mengli smiled faintly and said, "Actually, I really hate socializing. That time when I went drinking, it was also because Qin Shayan dragged me along, otherwise I wouldn't have met you. Sometimes, the trajectory of life is really amazing." Lu Mengli added, "No one can predict which will come first, tomorrow or an accident." "You're right." Chu Ting sighed with emotion, "In 6 years, I'll suddenly have a few more kids, and you." Chu Ting put a lot of emphasis on the last word, which made Lu Mengli a little startled. She smiled again, then turned and walked into the house, saying, "It's late, go to bed. Good night." Chu Ting finished the beer in his hand and then Lu Mengli's figure gradually disappeared into the hall. Chu Ting squashed the beer can and threw it into the trash can, then turned around and lay on the sofa, covered with a cool quilt, and gradually fell asleep. Until the next morning. Feeling a little itch in his nose, he unconsciously waved his hand, but soon he felt something drilling in and out of his nostrils, making him open his eyes suddenly. Several pairs of bright, big eyes were staring at him with a smile that curved like a crescent moon. Chu Ting then came to his senses, and then he heard Menghua giggling, shouting, "Dad, it's time to get up." They went to bed early, so they got up early too. When Chu Ting got up, he found that everyone was up. Menghua's short hair was all scattered on their shoulders, but they had washed their faces. In the kitchen, the faint smell of eggs and the rich smell of soy milk wafted towards them. Lu Mengli's busy figure kept darting around the kitchen. Seeing that Chu Choying had been woken up by the children, she said with vitality, "Good morning. I'd made breakfast for you, so get up and eat a little before going back to sleep." With that, she took off her apron and put on formal attire. Her hair was also up in a bun, looking very mature and intellectual. When she arrived at the door, she said while wearing high heels, "I have to go to work, and I'll help you move after work tonight." Then, loomingly said to the Manghua kids, "You guys just stay home with your dad, don't just play, remember to eat, and occasionally help your dad with the work, okay?" "Okay, Mom, we'll be good." "Mom, be careful on the road." "Bye, Mom." One by one, the Manghua kids said their goodbyes and watched Lu Mingli leave. Chu Chou Ting had also lost his sleepiness. He was about to say something to Lu Mingli, but she had already closed the door and disappeared. As soon as they saw Lu Mingli go to work, the kids jumped directly onto the sofa, bounced around, took Chu Chou Ting's hand and swung it around, saying, "Dad, wake up, the sun is shining on your bottom." Looking at the kids' wristbands, he realized that it was Sanbao who was causing trouble, so he patted the other's little head and said, "Dad is up, you guys go at breakfast first. We'll wait for Dad to eat together." But Wu Bao was innocent. Chu Chou Ting no longer lingered in bed, and hurriedly got up to wash up in the bathroom. In less than 5 minutes, he came out of the bathroom, while the cute babies were waiting at the table. Looking at the brand new, spotless table, which he had once used only to put things on, but now was clean and tidy, Chu Chou Ting knew that it was Lu Mingli who had gotten up early to clean it. Looking at the neatly arranged items around him, and the slightly new additions, Chu Chou Ting suddenly realized that his home had become lively. "My babies, you must be waiting impatiently." Chu Chou Ting walked over and noticed that the 4 chairs were completely insufficient for seating. Each baby was standing, and there was a difference in height, so he laughed and said, "Shall we eat on the coffee table?" "Yes." The babies naturally couldn't ask for anything more. Chu Chou Ting then moved the coffee table a little further out so that the children could sit down and lean against the sofa cushions to eat. After setting the table, all 7 children sat on the carpet and started eating. Seeing that the children were eating with relish, Chu Chou Ting also took a bite of the sandwich that Lu Mingli had made early in the morning. It still tasted so delicious. It went perfectly with soy milk. After eating, Chu Chou Ting helped the children clear the table and then started washing the dishes. The children also carefully wiped the table. After finishing the housework, Chu Chou Ting saw that the system had not given a prompt, and he knew that the task of taking care of the children had not been triggered. So he let nature take its course and said to the children, "Darlings, can I ask you a question?" "Dad, is there a reward?" "Dad, when will the watch you bought arrive?" "Where's my present, my Transformers?" Chu Chou Ting took out his phone and checked. It had already been shipped and was expected to arrive the day after tomorrow. After explaining to the girls, they all became excited. Then Chu Chou Ting continued to the main topic, "Do you want to go outside and play with other classmates?" Some answered and some were silent. Among them, Chibo was still not in a good mood and hid in the corner without saying a word. After learning about Chibao's past experiences, Chu Chou Ting became more patient. The minority must obey the majority, so, Dad has also decided to take you to kindergarten. There are lots of fun toys in kindergarten, as well as lots of fun kids who will play hide and seek and chicken with you, and you can also draw pictures and do homework together. You will have a great time every day in kindergarten. Do you want to go? Yes. The 6 adorable children answered in unison. Only Chibo remained silent. But Chu Chou-ying also had to let her learn to participate in social interactions and get in touch with other children more often. Only in this way could she come out of her shell. "Then you all wait for your father for a while, and I will contact the teacher now. Soon you can go to kindergarten and have fun." Chu Chou-ying coaxed the children. After that, he went to the balcony, found the contact number of Mickey Kindergarten, and called it. When the call was connected, a woman's voice came over the line, "Hello, this is Mickey Kindergarten. I'm Teacher Zhang. Who's calling, please?" Chu Chou-ying got straight to the point, "Hello, Teacher Zhang. I saw your school's enrollment information online, so I'm calling to ask some questions about my child's enrollment." "Of course, what is your surname, sir?" Teacher Zhang asked politely. "My surname is Chu, as in Chu Liuxiang." Mr. Chu Chou Ting smiled and said, "Teacher Zhang, here's the thing. My family has 7 children. I'm not sure if your school has any requirements for the number of students enrolled." 7 children? Teacher Zhang was a little surprised, but quickly answered professionally, "There are no rigid requirements for the number of students enrolled. We will accept any number of students. However, Mr. Chu, could you please tell me how old they are?" Mr. Chu Chou Ting didn't hide it, "They are all 5 years old." 5 years old is just right. They can come to our kindergarten for a year before transferring to the 1st grade, explained Teacher Zhang. But soon she felt something was wrong. Wait a minute, Mr. Chu, did you just say that all 7 of your children are 5 years old? If they were born 1 year apart, then the firstborn should be at least 7 or 8 years older than the lastborn, right? But they're all 5 years old. What the hell? Chu Chou-ting had obviously been prepared for this question, so he glanced at the adorable children playing in the living room and explained, Teacher Zhang, here's the situation. Chapter 20, tuition fees are 85,000 yuan a year, and when you take the cute kids out shopping, you encounter guard dogs. My family's situation is a bit special. My wife gave birth to 7s, so they're all 5 years old. Teacher Zhang. Teacher Zhang, are you still there? Seeing that the other party was taking a long time to respond, Chu Chouying asked tentatively. Yes, Mr. Chu, I am a bit hard to surprise. Teacher Zhang also laughed awkwardly and continued, your family's situation with the children is also acceptable in our kindergarten. If you are willing, we can add a WeChat and talk in more detail. No problem. Chu Chou-ting nodded, ready to get this done as soon as possible. Teacher Zhan was also happy about this and immediately told Chu Chou-ting her WeChat ID. After adding her, she explained the situation by typing. She sent a kindergarten fee schedule over, which was roughly the same as the online fee schedule. Mr. Chu, we don't have any hidden fees either. All the fees are just the childcare and education fees and the food fees, as you can see on the schedule I sent you. Teacher Zhang explained. Chu Chou-ting was relieved to hear this. But he still needed to ask in detail, during this period, are there any hidden fees for learning assistance, hardware facilities, etc.? Don't worry, our kindergarten is different from other kindergartens. These kinds of messy and chaotic fees are completely non-existent. There are only 2 times a year when parents need to buy custom-made uniforms for their children. Teacher Zhang also tried her best to explain clearly, a set of custom-made uniforms costs about 500 yuan. Chu Chou-ting felt that the price of the uniforms was a bit expensive after hearing this. 7 children will spend almost 7,000 yuan on uniforms in a year. Although he can afford it, he doesn't want to be taken advantage of. Teacher Zhang, 500 sets of children's clothing is a bit expensive, isn't it? Chu Chouying can accept the price of education fees. No matter how expensive it is, the children must go to school and pursue the quality of the teacher's teaching. But for clothing, there are only a few fabrics. If the quality is acceptable, there is nothing to say, but if it is made up with wholesale prices, Chu Chouying can't stand it. Mr. Chu, you get what you pay for. The quality of the clothing we use is excellent, and we work directly with the manufacturers. If you need a detailed list, our school can provide it. Chu Chou-ting glanced at the children, and under the leadership of Wu Bao, they began to quietly do their homework again. He finally reluctantly accepted, one last question, Mr. Zhang, does the meal fee also include living expenses and supplies? Mr. Zhang didn't reply for almost half a minute. Mr. Zhang, this is calculated separately. Chu Chou-ting looked at it and thought, good boy. If he didn't ask, there would be an inexplicable additional expense. How much is the cost of living supplies? Chu Chou-ting began to think carefully. Our kindergarten has a fixed fee, 1,500 yuan per child per semester. Teacher Zhang explained. Okay, Teacher Zhang, then I'll discuss it with my wife and give you a reply after we've made a decision. Chu Chou-ting found an excuse and didn't make a rash decision, so he didn't give a reply on the spot. Teacher Zhang also politely said, okay, Mr. Chu, you can consider our school. Within this district, our Mickey Kindergarten is one of the most popular schools among parents and children, and we have also won many awards, such as the Honorary Award at the Education Achievement Exhibition and the Kindergarten Safety Assessment Award, which we receive every year. However, Chu Chou-ting simply replied okay and started contacting the next alternative kindergarten. After adding WeChat and chatting, Chu Chou-ting discovered that there are actually some hidden fees in every kindergarten. Things like living expenses and supplies are the most basic, and some even include after-school tutoring in the miscellaneous fees. The price is a few hundred yuan higher than Mickey Kindergarten. In addition, there is a mandatory accommodation fee of 2,500 yuan per semester, which is simply outrageous. 1. There are also other things like a deposit for the pickup card, 50 yuan per person. And miscellaneous fees that make Chu Chou-ting's eyes glaze over. In the end, Chu Chou-ting decided to choose Mickey Kindergarten. Although the fees were not the lowest, there were no problems with the qualifications after checking. It had also been established for 13 years and was considered an old kindergarten. After recontacting, Teacher Zhang said to Chu Chou-ting, Mr. Chu, welcome to bring your children next week to complete the admission procedures. I will personally receive you and your children then. Okay, I'll trouble you then, Teacher Zhang. Shu Qiuting only then realized how hard it was to take care of children. Just contacting the kindergarten took him all morning, and he was still not sure if he could enroll his child. But everything is difficult at the beginning, and Shu Qiuting also wanted to try his best to be a good father, so even if it was tedious and tiring, he would persevere. Then, he finally did some calculations, and the final tuition fees for one child would add up to about 12,220 yuan. Including clothing fees and living expenses, there was an inexplicable additional 2,500 yuan in spending. For 7 children, that would be 85,540 yuan. For an ordinary family, Shu Qiuting felt that this tuition could not be afforded at all, and it was no wonder that Lu Mengli had been considering it before, but had not taken any practical action. Even if she earned 10,000 yuan a month, it was completely in short supply. Thinking about this, Shu Qiuting also secretly rejoiced that he had obtained the Menghua Daddy system, otherwise he would never be able to afford to send his children to school. This was only the initial stage, and when it came to primary school, junior high school, and university, the costs would be even higher. Suddenly, he understood why Lu Mengli had kept asking him to think about sending the children to school. After settling the school issue, Shu Qiuting looked at the children again. They had not bothered him during his phone call. When he entered the room, Erbao came over with his homework and said, "Dad, look at the words I wrote. You taught me yesterday." Shu Qiuting looked at the little guy and drew a picture again, but this time there were 3 people in the hand-drawn picture. If you look closely, you can still distinguish a child and 2 adults watching the rocket lift off. The 3 people have names above their heads: me, the scientist, Dad, and Mum. "Dad, do you think I drew it well?" Erbao said with expectation in his eyes. Recalling his exchange with Lu Mengli last night, Shu Qiuting knew that Erbao's character was that of a rather curious child. He couldn't help but praise him, saying, "My dear, you've drawn really well. Daddy can't keep up with you. Your creativity is fantastic. If you entered this in a competition, you'd definitely win a prize." "Hee, thanks, Daddy," Erbao laughed heartily. "Daddy, this is me, and this is you and Mummy. I'm going to be an astronaut and take off in a rocket. Daddy, you told me to draw this, and I didn't draw an aeroplane this time, I drew a rocket." For some reason, Shu Qiuting's eyes filled with tears and he was inexplicably moved. After picking up the second treasure, Shu Qiuting kissed the other person's little face and said, "Baby, you're awesome, Daddy loves you." "Hey, Daddy, I love you too." Although they had only known Shu Qiuting for less than 2 or 3 days, in the impressionable children's minds, his performance had been recognized. The impressionable children didn't have too many thoughts either, and they loved whoever treated them well. This is a good start. At least most of the cute kids accept and recognize themselves. "Dad, I'm hungry." Sanbao is more active and interested in everything. At this time, when everyone is doing homework, she is looking around, digesting faster, and running over to be spoiled. Shu Qiuting looked at the time and it was almost 11 o'clock, so he said to the cute kids, "Okay, Dad will go buy food and cook for you." With his new culinary skills, Shu Qiuting is ready to cook for the kids at home. As for ordering takeaway, forget it. Most of it is unhygienic, and it's fine if you get diarrhea yourself, but if something goes wrong with the kids eating it, that would be a big problem. "Dad, can we go shopping with you?" Wu Bao's eyes were full of inquiry and expectation. Although he didn't know how the children had lived before Lu Mengli was away, now that he was around, he also wanted to take the children shopping more often. Besides, there was a large supermarket nearby, just 300 to 400 meters away, so he didn't think much about it and said, "Okay, let's clean up and set off, shall we?" "Yes." The cute children cheered. It was obvious that they had been cooped up at home for too long and wanted to go out and see new things. But looking at their messy hair, Shu Qiuting felt the need to give them a little grooming, otherwise they would look like wild children. "My dears, let Daddy brush your hair so you can go out looking pretty, okay?" Shu Qiuting said gently. The children did not resist, but cooperated very well instead. Dabeo even took the comb and handed it to Shu Qiuting, smiling, "Daddy, here you go. This is what Mum usually uses to brush our hair." Shu Qiuting looked at the wooden comb, then picked up his daughter and placed her on his lap. Leaning back against the sofa, he began to carefully comb her hair. Dabeo's hair was just below her shoulders, not long, but it was very soft and didn't feel boring at all. It could be said that children's hair is better, just like their mothers'. After a minute, he had combed Dabeo's hair neatly and smoothly. But then she handed him another cute rubber band, smiling and saying, "Dad, tie it up for me, just like Mum does." Tying her hair was a bit of a challenge for Chu Chou Ting. But he was willing to give it a try. He gathered up Dabao's hair again and wrapped the rubber band around it. For the first time, the rubber band popped off too hard. It made the other cute kids laugh. Chu Chou Ting refused to give up and did it a second time. After a lot of hard work, it came undone because it was too loose. The third time. And the fourth time. Chu Chou Ting's forehead was sweating, but he still couldn't get it right. He refused to believe in evil. He tried a fifth time and finally got the hang of it. After winding it 3 or 4 times, he tied a ponytail on Dabao. It looked pretty good and didn't fall apart when Dabao jumped around. Then, it took a few more minutes to style the remaining children's hair, each with the same ponytail. When he finished, he looked at the clock and it was already 11:30. He hurriedly got up and said, "Babies, let's go now. Dad is rushing." The cute babies were getting restless. Ding, comb the hair of the cute babies, get a C rating, and get a 2,000 yuan cash reward. Starting to multiply. Ding, successful multiplication, get a 5-fold cash reward, 10,000 yuan has been issued to the owner's account. Listening to the sound of the money coming in, Chu Chou Ting instantly felt how wonderful it was to take care of children. And this time, a rare high multiple appeared, which was really exciting. If he could, he would like Lu Mingli to give birth to 10 more for him, and maybe the highest multiple could be increased to more than 10 times, which would be awesome. Each cute child also independently put on their shoes, and Chu Chou Ting was responsible for tying the laces, or if they were slow, he would help them put them on. He didn't get a reward this time, but Chu Chou Ting didn't care. After putting on his keys and taking the hands of the children, Chu Chou Ting walked into the elevator, went downstairs, and barked. But just then, a homeowner in the elevator suddenly shouted at the cute children while holding his dog.